I would like to begin with the first question, which is a question that will be related to the background of each of the panelist members. And I do believe that our panelists have imported from overseas, just flown, touched ground on the tarmac at the airport. I would like to begin to invite Mr. Zarak.
Greeting everyone on behalf of the representative from Indonesia. From my personal background, I am working at SCG and got assigned to work in Indonesia. I have to say that SCG has invested in the regional level, whether it's going to be ASEAN and from the European region, especially in our ASEAN region. Our content that we have assigned to be overseas, we have in total of 44 packs. And in terms of my responsibility, I am responsible for the SCG Building Material Group in Indonesia. In Indonesia, we have 35 companies, but on the part that I am responsible, it's about 16 companies. I have been working for 6 years in Indonesia.
All right, we'll be diving deep with her in Indonesia pretty soon with Mr. Zarak. Next, Mr. Wishnat, please.
I'm working in Kasikorn Bank under the finance. And if you look at my position earlier, we used the word deliver a financial solution. Because in K-Bank, we have one strategy that we try to pin our flag of K-Bank in overseas, because we have one department which is called World Business Group. So we would like to set up our finance related business to be in overseas by focusing on efficiency and also the business highlight. So the pictures that I'm responsible in would be helping and enhancing K-Bank to be able to acquire other businesses as well as to blend culture of K-Bank with those businesses that we would like to either merge or acquire. And of course, we have from e-commerce side, we started from building the banking and also creating the policy so that we could deliver back our work to the headquarters.
Thank you very much, Mr. Now. Next, our sole gentleman here on the panelist, Mr. Paurit. Well, hello, Swadee Krap, Paurit here. I'm the CFO of CP Vietnam. For me, I was assigned in Vietnam in 2012 to 2017. That's my operations in Vietnam. It will be the Hong Kong listed. It means that I was responsible in reporting the activities, and I was able to be moving back to Thailand for the past 2 years. In 2019, I was sent back to as a CP Vietnam. 2019 until today. In all together, I've been in Vietnam for about 10 years now, a whole decade of my career. The operations of CP in Vietnam, we invested about 30 years, but we had to use the international standards, applying that after we been entering the stock market exchange. Yes, and after listening to each of your backgrounds, you can see that each of you have been worst with experience with your career overseas, especially when in the environment that is truly multinational. So, the ASEAN CPA, all of you who are here with us, you will probably be informed a lot of information for today. Next, I would like to ask Mr. Paurit on the aspect of experience in your career. What are the challenges and what are the obstacles, and having a foreigner as a chief accountant, how does the team can support the efficiency of the organization? I see it as this way, that working overseas, there are 3 factors that I wanted to talk about. Factor number 1, I would say that the most important thing is about communications. Where I'm a Thai, going overseas, And using Thai as a language in communicating with the local accountant is it's not impossible. The language should be at least English, or even better, the local language. For me, in truth, in reality, I use Vietnamese as the main language. The first day I arrived in Vietnam, I could tell you, Sawadee. I don't even know how to say hello or Sawadee in Vietnamese. So I learned that in Vietnamese. Xin chào. That's in Vietnamese. And for a Thai person living in Vietnam, a Thai can learn Vietnamese easily and quickly compared to other foreigners in other countries, because the way we form the grammatical rules of Vietnamese and Thai is similar. Despite the fact we are speaking Thai, just exchange the words into Vietnamese. The tense, the words, and the font is in English. This is why for Thai living in Vietnam, all Thais can almost speak Vietnamese. In the CP group in Vietnam, there were 200 Thais living in Vietnam in CP, and I think 200 Thais in CP can speak Vietnamese about 3 to 4 months, and they begin communicating at the basic level. The first factor, language. If you want to skip English altogether, speak a local language. Factor number 2, if you're an accountant, as a professional, technical terms, living in Thailand, USPA or non-PAE, or EF, IFAC. But when you're overseas, that is in the ASEAN region, each country, they have their own accounting standards. If you reconcile the way to practice or even how you put in the books, one thing that you need to know, IFRS or the international standard. The reason why that we should know the international standard is if you want to compare the difference between the Thai standard and the Vietnamese standards or Indonesian standard or Myanmar standard, it's kind of hard. But if you base your comparison from the IFIS and compared with the Vietnam gap and how different is it, I think that it will give us the better understanding of each country's standard. Furthermore, one thing that I also see that any accountant should also have a deeper study is about tax. I do believe that in Vietnam, the tax laws is adopted from OECD, which is also an international standard. Therefore, I see this. The second point that we need to adjust and adapt is the technical. It's the standard of working. And finally, when you're overseas, is your lifestyle and the background of the Thais and Vietnamese have a different background context. Every culture is different. And the way we communicate, such as one example that I will share with you easily. Like the previous session, one of the juniors said that in Vietnam, the cash account they has been stated that cash in a company must be in account 111. That is the account code, as in account payable 111, or a fixed asset 211. Therefore, with the first time, I, as a Thai accountant, the way we do accounting, debit cash, credit sales, debit cash, credit AR. But arriving in Vietnam, Vietnamese accountants, they use number codes, debit 111, credit 511, for instance. Well, you need to attempt to understand what do you mean by 111. And we need to make an effort that, yeah, my background in Thailand is like a debit credit for accountants, right? Or talking to your team or the local accountants, we have to try, they will have also to fine tune us too. Well, this is the preliminary things that I want to share with you as our challenge. And on the aspect that when you asked if you have a foreigner as a chief accountant, what are the benefits? When you have a team which is have diverse background and cultures, there will be a broader perspective. If you live in Thailand, you have a background, certainly, right? This is why we look at business in a certain way, or even the characteristics of how we may perceive the meaning. Once we go out of our environment, is different. The way we perceive accounting, it'll be different too, because the information that is in front of you is not the same. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Powritt. Mr. Proud, there are 4 points that should be a challenge for those as ASEAN accountants. One is about language, accounting standards, tax, and lifestyle living in that country. And then we will add on to a different perspective from Ms. Sana, please.
Actually, I have to say that Mr. Bobbitt has mentioned nearly all of the aspect, but if we look from the headquarter perspective, we also have certain requirement that so basically the point is if we want to acquire certain businesses, we have to understand the practice or the due diligence that they have to do. So for us to walk into that enterprise and ask them to do certain thing more, like you have mentioned that about IFIS, sometimes they might have adopted, but we already adopted, but they might have the interpretation in terms of the IFIS that is quite differently. Therefore, they have to handle something that we call as multi-book, because we have like the accounting book and also the tax book. However, in these countries, they might need to have a headquarter book. For the MNC, I believe that you might understand about these packages that you have to submit to the overseas headquarters. And however, this we need to have the system, meaning that there need to be the implementation of the headquarter reporting tools, which is the cost in terms of the financial cost, the timely costs, and also the effort has to be implemented. Because in order for us to implement, the point is we have to let them buy in the reason why they have to do that. So what Mr. Parvit has mentioned, it is really the foundation of working as the multinational company. So we need to blend the culture and the belief, as well as to build these via the system. This is the first point. The second point is when we're talking about the working culture, the working style, when we talk about the word finance, there will be in terms of the accountant perspective, we are doing the record in terms of debit and credit. But there is also another perspective, which is called monetary accounting, which means if you want to turn the accountant to become the business partner, another question is how can we do that? So the mindset is we want to set the financial statement that show the health of that company. So basically, how can we trace back these problems so that it could help the business? Basically, like in the bank perspective, we might got some kind of like problem solving, like the homework, like if this business want to move forward in this perspective, how could the accountant part take the role, or how could they help? So as the bank, we have to do some kind of like value added in order to put in terms of the global scale, we would be able to practice and we can really create a unite as a team. So we need communication and we need to make people believe and buying in that idea. So this is another complexity that might happen in the difference of nation and languages.
วางระบบนะครับ
Implementing a system in a country to be coinciding with the HQ or corporate quarters, right, is a challenge that big companies, even domestically in Thailand, when they have branches overseas, they will face the same challenges as well. And Ms. I want to add on, you need to involve the local accountants in aiding in these efforts.
Well, I have to say that it is a must, because for me, we will understand about the tribe practice. We know what we want, but they, as the local in those countries, they will tell us in order for them to deliver what we want, what are the process. They're working in the front line. So allow me to say the word, to be in a few words. So in terms of the regulators, in terms of the revenue department, or even in their own national bank, they know what they want. So they will tell us what is the do and what is the don't. They are the implementer. Therefore, when we work together in that aspect, I would say it is the benefit, because when we have more people, we are able to do the brainstorming. We get the real practicality.
Yeah, and Mr. Sorak, let's look at Indonesia. What's the difference compared to Vietnam, as Mr. Barbies has mentioned?
คือถ้าจะพูด If we are talking about the challenges, if we got a chance to work in overseas as an expat, I have to say that the first challenge that you face is you have to do something that is really new that you have never done before. So if you got a chance to be able to work overseas, the responsibility that you have to handle, it has to be really covered in all the dimension, whether it's going to be like finance, accounting, or even tax, or sometimes in terms of legal stuff. So I'm trying to trace back my 6 years ago. The challenge there was, before I went there, I have to understand and learn that the new location that I have to be located, what is the focus area, what is my main responsibility, and I have to take that role. Comparing with my ability and my capability, what are the gaps there? And trying to prepare as much as possible. Like for me personally, as a accountant, I'm not a CPA, I'm an accountant, just normal accountant, typical accountant. I have to say that's something that I'm still lacking. Is maybe I'm not didn't have that knowledge in terms of the accounting and in terms of the finance. I have never done it before. Tax, I've never been working or in touch with the revenue department, or even the lease and a loan. I also don't have to collect by themselves. So I have to really learn about what is the possibility, and I also have to learn in terms of the gap that I'm still lacking. And when on the actual day when I work at that place, don't expect that everything that you have prepared will be able to be used, as well as all the experience that you have acquired. When I trace back, I would say that only I think it's less than 30% that I could really apply and implement. But of course, before I move to work overseas, the first golden rule is you don't compare, because sometimes when you go there, you might have only one Thai person, but you might have 100 accountants. Therefore, it means that you are the foreigner in that nation or in that country or in that state. So the next question is, how can we blend into be the person in that states? So what I'm trying to do until now is I'm trying to, of course you can compare, but not comparing to the point that why is it not like ours, not in that perspective. So I'm trying to, you can try to compare to find a linkage and trying to understand the mutual understanding so that you can move forward. Because I believe that this is one of the challenge. And another point is some kind of like normal concept. I would say that it is about the lifestyle, the culture. I went to Indonesia, and I have to say that the main country, they believe in Muslim. It is a Muslim country. So when you're about to go there, you have to study and you have to learn about their culture. It's like when you went to other province in Thailand, you also have to study about their culture. So if you have to go overseas, you also have to study and learn about those culture. You have to understand about the background of those staff that you have to be with them and learn and to stay and work with them. And in terms of the culture, in terms of the language, you also have to prepare beforehand. And then SHG will have the orientation session. They will explain about the background of those demographic and geographic, and also what are the do and don'ts before we have the actual onboarding. These are the main challenges.
All right, it's like about prepare for the expected and the unexpected. You'll be confronting things that you didn't see it coming. And the one thing is about the focusing. Evaluate oneself. What are your strengths and your weaknesses, with the intent to strengthen the right points. Because you're going there as a one-man show, it doesn't exist in the working environment. Next question I would like to ask Anushnat with this question. And how about a modern organization? As our president, do they need, what type of ASEAN accounting do they want? And from the perspective of you, Mr. Shnat, as present-day modern accountants, what are things that they have to adjust to meet with the goals of the organization's objectives?
Well, mainly there are 3 points. The first one is the understanding of the standards, basically the IFRS. Because when we adopt the IFRS, this is the key of the accountant or the heart of the accountant, because as we have been mobilized and work overseas and across the nation, language, I have to say that the accounting standard is like a common language of the accountant. So when you understand these, it will be like the basic for you. However, understanding is not doesn't mean that the standard said it is like this in this paragraph. We can refer this standard at this page at that paragraph. However, the meaning of this understanding means we have to understand the rationale of that standard. So if we take a look on the RFIF, we'll be able to understand the basic of conclusion. Those attachment that has provided for us, they're trying to explain that in order for them to be able to crystallize out to get one paragraph, there are some certain people or many people that they're trying to summarize, they're trying to interpret, they're trying to explain why they could interpret into that level. Therefore, if you could understand about this, wherever you work, you'll be able to adapt. Like in terms of the banking industry, those who are working in the front line, we are working with the business, usually the BU part. Sometimes they like to challenge by challenging us by saying that why are you so conservative? Like for example, IFRS 9, they can collect the front end fee. Why don't you announce with us? But at the same time, you also have to understand why do we have the EIR concept. This is one of the example. And if you can explain about this, explain the meaning. Because when they doing their work by being ordered versus being work because of the belief, these are totally different. Therefore, you have to understand what is the thinking process of that person. And the second point is you have to practice to be the person who trying to set up the assignment. Because in the business, when like for example when you study, you have to solve this, you have to solve that. But in the actual real business world, it's coming in terms of transaction. For example, if you want to invest in certain areas, in a certain thing, in terms of the accounting impact, what is the accounting impacts on that investment? That is the question that you have to ask to yourself, and asking yourself in terms of the assignment that in this financial impact, what is the level of it? And once you know that assignment, then you have to have that execution plan. Like for this assignment, what are the procedure, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, it's not only you who are doing it. You might be the one who conduct it, meaning that you might have to delegate this assignment to someone else. So you have to know the implementation process, because at the last resource, it's still coming back to the financial statement. And the third point is communication. Even if we know we are really well known in terms of the technical knowledge, but the accountant might have the weak point, which is to be able to communicate with other people. Sometimes we might use technical accounting terms normal people might not understand, and sometimes we might have to use our last output to communicate with the management level. The things that we have to enforce is we have to summarize the concept into the executive committee and trying a summary and trying to have as a maximum of 5 bullet points. So how can we summarize it into an easier language? I think this is something that you have to practice.
นักบัญชีนะครับ
As a cardinal rules of being an accountant is accounting standards, and accounting standards is quite hard to understand at a certain level. When even the business, there's some problems with reading and understanding, interpreting. That's why you need accountants that have a true understanding and understanding the business as well. These go both ways, and a good combination so that they can work in parallel. Ms. Sulak, do you have anything to add?
นักบัญชี
Accounting in this era, what are the requirements, right? I would like to add on from Ms. Nushinat. She was talking about the communication. I have to say that in the accounting world, it is not easy in order for others to be able to join, because this is one of the important career, one of the important profession. The impact that could cause from the accounting and taxation practice, this is also invaluable. So in terms of the accountant, not only, I have to say that apart from the knowledge, the technical knowledge in some dimension, they might need to understand in a deeper level in those technical knowledge. For example, like IFRS, it has a large impact with the business. So they really, and we really have to understand that the reason that we have this IFRS, why is the reason that they have this IFRS, so that you could be able to communicate with those who are related to the business activity. Because if we can't communicate in the understandable way, then it might be possible that you would turn out to be some kind of like the bad guy, because sometimes they have a lot of involvement in terms of the stakeholder, and if you can't explain to the business owner or those who are related to the business, you might turn out to be the villain, but actually you are like the hero who comes on a white horse, or the knight on a white horse, because you are trying to avoid and don't want any surprises to happen in the business. So when we're talking about the accounting principle and trying to communicate and make non-accountant to understand, this is also a challenge, and it is not easy. Comparing to the past, when you're like a pure accountant, some people might say that you can't communicate well, something like that. So when I'm reflect on myself, that is also true, because I'm trying to use the accounting principle, like all the procedures, and trying to talk with those who are non-accountant. I'm telling them for the entire process. We're talking from the far front, but sometimes you might need to know only just the middle process, and maybe at the end of the process. Who knows? So at that point, if I want to suggest, you have to practice in terms of summarization, and also in which point you might have to talk, like for example, like you have to talk like a teaser of the movie, or you have to talk like a series of movies. So you have to sequencing your communication, and at the same time you have to use your word of choice, trying not to use the technical or specific words unless they are interested and they keep asking, like they have further questions, then you can explain. Because otherwise, when you're trying to talk about 2 to 3 sentences, when people don't understand your terms, they might block the understanding. So when you start with the introduction, you might have to do the summary and also be direct to the point and make it as easy as possible.
ในชีวิตจริงเลย
This is really a reflection of real life. I mean, an accountant going to any department, they're being rejected all the time. All the departments never see as accountants as someone to help them. They often see them that when an auditor comes in to audit the books, right? We feel the same way. This is why it's about a communication issue, that we need to communicate with true mutual understanding about the reason, and aid each other out in finding a way out together. Asking with how can we continue business operations, run the business, smooth operations, and compliance to all the accounting standards. And Mr. Powrit, what are any other ideas and perspectives you want to share? Well, our 2 speakers covered almost everything. Let me summarize it this way, that what the business expects from accountants, that they want us to be the partners, right? To help them think, advise, manage. To be someone as a close advisor, right? We must speak the language that they understand. Furthermore, we don't only concentrate on accountants. We have to understand the business nature of the business we're in, the characteristics of the firm, organization, the company. The reason why we have to go down to the deep details. We had so deep that even till the production line, even the processes of production, manufacturing, and so forth. Because your job is the accountant. You are the one who come up with the numbers. In the end of the day, in a year from now or 5 years from now, all these reports or how we put down the books will be automated with robots, with software, or some type of robots to help you out. But when that day comes, so ask yourself, as an accountant, what are you going to do next then? We know that each number that's in the report, where it's derived from. It's our job. We know best all these numbers that are in the report. What does it mean? And what are the ways of how can we improve it? I think this is the management or the board expects or wishes that the accounting team should deliver. So I say that as an accountant, not only should only understand the accounting standards, but we must upskill about critical thinking. The numbers in the report that we generated, what are the impacts to the performance of the company, and ask how can we improve it. Furthermore, I also see that one thing that the management expects or wishes that they want the accountants to be more proactive. Supposing if they want to make this kind of project direction, right? They want the accountant to suggest what are the impacts, such as the impacts in tax, impacts on accountants. Because from the perspective of accounting and tax is different from each country. If you cross borders, for instance, for another country overseas, same operations, similar type of work that you conducted in Thailand may have no implications in law or in tax in this country, but you do the same thing overseas, right? They may have some impacts and implications differently because there's also regulations of the countries are different. One of an example that I can share with you is such as tax, VATA, CIT, for instance. In Thailand, we submitted as the whole Vietnam. They don't care if you're in the same under the same company holdings, or you have 3 branches in 3 provinces. You have to pay VAT per province. This is why you have to separate the budget for each province, VAT or CAT, that will be paid per province, and calculate that. This is, in Thailand, we didn't expect that coming. Therefore, the way we analyze or even advise of the creating of a business model, or even the creation of a company, may have an impact to create value to a company. In fact, this is why accountants, the management wishes the accountant to have in this aspect as well. But Mr. Parvit, you touched upon about technology, which is artificial intelligence. As of now, there's some issues about the accountants are real fearful that AI may actually replace them. They often see AI as a threat. So what are your thoughts that AI was applied to work in partner with accountants? Well, what I think is this. In the end of the day, if you say that an accountant should be the one to fill in, write down the numbers in a piece of paper on a book, we have a computer, we got a software to use. In the end, the accountant must adjust oneself to work with robots or the software. But the software may have some different characteristics, more features, do more. Accountants, like back in the day, we actually about 10 items per day, per month, depends. Next, right? One day they have a robot that can do this job for you, right? So the robot will fill in the books for you. So we can to put down the software for like 10 machines, right? It's about increasing efficiency of the accountant.
Allow me to add on. When we are looking at the robotic perspective, we see that the coming in terms of the efficiency, it also comes with the productivity. When we talk about the accountants, we're not only doing the recording of the transaction, but we're also doing the leaning process. For example, in terms of the banking industry, we have to handle tremendous transaction, like when the customer walk into the branch to deposit the money, then we have to make it the right from the front end until the back end. Therefore, the coming of these robotic procedure, it might help us to lean up the process, because eventually it talks about the safer cost in that agency or that organization. The second point is the robotic is also another type of tool, and of course we also need the idea, or we need the brain power, we need that engine source, which the human capital still need to be the one who tell them. So when we trace back whatever we want them, and if we could turn that to be something that the robot could help us, but we are the one who think thought, provide the thought process for it. So instead of us as a doer, turn out to be the thinker and to be the executor.
Yes, it's like anything to add, because SCG, I think that you got robotics to aid in business operations a lot, right?
ที่ SCG เป็น
Because STG is quite a large company and we have a lot of sub company and sub organizations. So by implementing digital, it's really a necessary, like not only for us to do the recording for the accounts. We have to say that right now accountant, we're not using the paper terms or anything, because right now ERP has been working on behalf of the accountant. So I have to say that we are in the digital transformation era. There are robotics, there are blockchain, and also many other technologies that would be able to implement or being used on behalf of the operational level. Therefore, I'm not sure whether this could be called as an upskill or reskill. We have to turn ourselves to become a data analytic aspect. And I would like to add on Ms. Nushana that we also have to align to create the system, and we have to close the gap of the system. Don't closing the gap that how can we reduce, like we create the efficiency, and how can we reduce the gap that the robot will replace the human. However, we want to create the competency in terms of the human that we would like to add on. So in terms of the digital end, we also have to think of, apart from that we could write, we also have to be able to design and lay out the system. In order to do so, we also have to understand about the accounting world's procedure, so that we would be able to turn the transaction to be able to work, able to let them to work in the digital world.
Well, in summary, you have to live with them. You have to understand it, not try to push away, to resist it. Now, there's a voice from the accountants. The accountants always say that the business world is changing so rapidly, and those accountants, they're doing it now. They're understanding the business. They can't catch up with the changing world. Even the accounting standards, even there's some regulations that they doesn't really answer some type of business. So I want to ask you, Mr. Schnau, do we have the process in coping with the business that is more complex these days?
In summary, I think there are two approaches. The first one is to source out the knowledge from the external resources. Like from the bank, we might do the partnership with our auditor. For example, like those big four or those multinational company, they have the knowledge sharing with the global level. Usually will be the original source, which usually they initiate from there, and they might feed us with new way of accounting. This is the external sources, but when the other one is the internal sources, which is about ourselves. Right now we have like SEO, for example, like Google, and we have many type of journals that I'm trying to update. Like I also create the journal of accounting where I will do we can do a free registration. Therefore, we would be able to understand what is the trend in the market. For example, like when we're talking about ESG, in my perspective, the ESG might be just some kind of CSR, but in fact, in the business world, they are looking ESG as something that could become a monetary making factors. In the banking industry perspective, how could we set up as the business assignment that how can we make this to be more sustainable? What type of customer that we would like to provide a loan. So this has been developed from the global level. Therefore, we have to acquire more knowledge, and we also have to identify in terms of the impact of what we have done and also the value added that we could do in the next step. So what we have done so far, what we have been discussed for so far, it's the fundamental in order for us to create as a stepping stone for the future.
ครับผม
All right. We will go diving deeper with some questions, Mr. Baurit, Sister Rat. And her career has been quite close with ASEAN accountants in Vietnam and Indonesia. I would like Mr. Baurit to share when, during time in Vietnam with Vietnamese accountants, I want you to dive deep into details and share some real-life cases that what are the experiences and you had to tremendously adjust yourself and things that you had to fine-tune to work with your coworkers. Well, as I have mentioned prior, first thing is the culture issue. Our two nations have different cultures. Well, even our backgrounds, the methodologies, the way we teach and educate and train is different. At first, when we discuss, it was wholly different. I call debit cash sales. They call debit 111, debit 511, their own code. We finally a challenge to fine tune. It was a massive challenge. And secondly was our lifestyle. Thai people normally, like for me, we work together. Let's and in the evening let's go out, spontaneous. But for my subordinates in Vietnam, I'm going to invite them for dinner, like an ice-breaking activity to get to know better. They said, no, you have to inform me prior, at least 3 to 5 days ahead of time for an appointment. I thought it was a culture shock that it was when you go overseas, you have to understand the norms, right? Because some they say they can't do it because they got a wife, they got a family, children to go back. This is why they have to inform. But for us, we can call it on call spontaneous. Let's go for dinner. Let's go for drinks. We can do it now, right? But one more thing that in Vietnam that has been conceived, that been created, that we Thailand haven't done yet, invoice. Invoices in Vietnam. Any transaction is sent by email. They don't do it by paper form any longer. But businesses and companies that issue invoices is controlled, regulated by the government. There's 5 companies in Vietnam. Therefore, in the way we work, despite the fact that we're working with our internal accountants, we have to discuss with outside accountants as well, because information technology, invoices are here, right? This is why it forces us to discuss with the operator the information that's submitted to us. How does it look like? Is it in PDF? So we have to have our staff to key it in, right? So how can we have the system to improve it? So they asked them to send it in text form. There's one thing that we were able to develop. And the rest, when it comes to the characteristics in Vietnam and in Thailand, that our background deeply, we're so close. And even the climate is even the same. Even geography is the same. So there wasn't a really big issue about the food or even religion in Vietnam. They define themselves, there are atheists. But in Thailand, if we said that we have to go to a temple and do alms, right? The Vietnamese won't really understand our traditions. But about in the business world, what are the requirements that is different from business in Thailand, business in Vietnam? Is there any specific requirements? I think that the business trend, global scale, is not different. But in Vietnam, it's a country that they have a explosion of population growth, and what they expect is haste and rapidness, quickly. Regulations that are issued out, immediately effective by the government. This is when we work with Vietnamese. We must have a team to follow up both in regulations, in laws, accountancy, in tax. They update it almost every quarter. There's a new law coming out. We have a need to have a team to understand and translate these and consider about the impacts towards us. Furthermore, in Vietnam, they perceive that, I think, what I see it, as our president, because there's ways to shorten the time in learning. They have to go step by step like us do. They know that what do you have to do from 0 to 10. They have to just skip 0 to 10 right away. But to fast forward the way they learn, we have to inform our team that we can't like implement SAP. Our team has to understand about the backbone and the structure of SAP. They create a system into it. Because if you ask in 5 years ahead and in a decade ahead of time, the person who implemented, they all retired. And they ask you, can you ask anyone in the firm to understand, to explain it, or each button that they press? What does it mean? I think this is one of the things that we have to continuously improve. Thank you very much. And Mr. Lak, what do you think? How about Indonesia?
คือต้องบอกว่า
I have to say that Indonesia, there is a lot of variety in that country. We have a lot of population. I believe that everyone knows we have more than 250 million in population. The employee in SCG, we have about 10,000 employees. About 5% are the accounting team. So when we're talking, when we're working with the accounting, we have to say that accounting is a universal language. So the benefit of the Indonesia is when we adopt the standards, it's quite nearly the same timeline with Thailand. So we rarely have any problem that we have to trying to bridge the gap in that point. But if we have to take a look, because I'm the representative of the headquarters, so we also have certain requirements from the headquarters that we have to do. Mainly will be the information that we have to consolidate. And of course, we can't do it by ourselves. So when we work, we have to work with the team. Of course, my position when I went there, it might look like I'm the boss, but actually we are the same team. So when they submit the consolidated information, if we compare some company that we are doing M&A, some part they might not have to do it, but when we have already do the M&A with these businesses, then they have certain point that or certain item that they need to do more. And in terms of the religions, of course, different religion have different practical or different rule of thumbs. So of course, when we might know it before we went to the country, but because they really have that a variety. The majority will be Muslim. Of course, they have Buddhists. They also have Christian. In the country, in the company, we also have the differentiation in terms of the religion as well. So the respect level or to dealing with the team, we have to understand in what certain period of time we can do or cannot do. Because in Indonesia, we also have the Ramadan month, or basically it's the Eid level. It's the Eid festival. So we have to understand what is the best practice that we have to do, and what we have to beware is try not to drink water in front of them. And we have to practice ourselves when we eat, when we drink. However, we are living together with the variety, and we can sustain the team as it goes. But if we're talking about other aspects, because when I went there, just by only the accounting team, the dimension when we are working in overseas, we also have the dimension in terms of the taxation, finance, and account. Therefore, account knowledge, by only the account knowledge might not be enough. So in the SCG Indonesia, we also need to have like the department of the accounting, finance, lease, and tax. So we really have to create a team there. So basically, if we are lacking in some point, we have to fill in the gap. Maybe we might need the tax consultant or some law firm to build up the skill or to close those risks or mitigate the risk of the business. So of course we have to we need the accountant from both Thai and Indonesian to have the whole round knowledge. We can't only focus on the business. For example, right now the thing that really impacts us is about the energy. We have to understand that what is the price of oil has been increased like this, the coal or fossil fuels has increased to the same level like this. So we need to minimize the impact. How can we minimize the impact? Or for example, during the COVID, Indonesia has but we have to say that we hit really hard. I think during the lockdown we have quite a lot of people who got affected with the COVID-19, got infected with the disease. And of course, Thailand, from Thailand headquarters, we asked everyone to plan for the worst, but do for the best, which means that how can we prepare in order to reduce these impact. Therefore, of course, in Thailand, we also implement, but overseas, everyone in the organization has also to take notice and also have to help out. And everyone has to understand that accountant doesn't do only accounting. Mainly at that time, we are the working capital management because we can't predict the impact. And of course, we plan for the worst to the point that we can't collect the money from the client, and how can we survive at that point. And when we coming from that perspective, all the plan that we can implement, whatever we think that it's going to be worse, it turns out to be the base case.
idea
Wow, fantastic. Many ideas from Ms. Paurit and Mr. Sarak and Mishnat from the perspective of working overseas. As of now, I have another question because there were many events. Prior to that was COVID, and we were promoting from work from home, work anywhere. So what does these kind of events have on accountants if they're been posted overseas? Or can they be stationed anywhere and work from anywhere? But for me, I think there are opportunity for CP. For instance, we had a program called Shared Service Center, which is some transaction you can do it yourself, and then everything is sent to Bangkok for IPA to run the system. Absolutely, when you have COVID, it proves that when you do accounting, it is not necessary that you have to be stationed at the place all the time. Doesn't mean that you don't come to the office at all. I know you have to be visiting the office once in a while. But when it comes to operations and transactions, I do believe that you can do it remotely, and you can monitor it with clarity with COVID as a driving force, as an impetus to drive changes quicker than expected.
I would like to add on, like Mr. Pravit has mentioned, about the service sharing. This could change the perspective of the accounting department, because service sharing, it could change the cross service to become service center. For example, like when we're talking about the accounting, it means that our work is related to a profession. It means it has values, and we can convert it to be business partner. It means that all the cases that they ask for our advice and all the report that we can generate, it can turn out to be finance or in terms of the actual money. And if we can link into the managerial level, we can account it financially for those organizations. The second point is if we can use the tools, for example, to use RPA and other tools, and if we could create it up to be one company and can create like the holistic services, it means that we can shift the crisis that we are facing, adding with the expertise that we have, and we can convert it to be the actual money. And then another point is the terms business partner, there is also the meaning. It means we might have to convert these cases because of course in all the business they need to have the accounting because they have to convert these business activity to become transaction so we can convert it into the value in terms of the finance. And in terms of shared service, I have to say that the XRG has started for quite a long time because we have the main accountant that doing the shared service in order to help managing all the accounting in the business and in branch. So now we are doing it in Indonesia and also in Vietnam. I believe that we'll have a further development in a really meantime. And when you say that, sometimes what business want us to do. So instead of being like the housewife or the business partner, as an accountant, we have to be able to look after something that is unusual, and we have to be able to explain or tell those who are related. So now not only telling only about the problem, but sometimes you might have to set up scenario, or maybe we have to plan for the worst and maybe create some kind of option or solution, providing with pro and con. It might mean we have to be able to see to the future, like we can be the future predictor that what is the next impact that is about to come. Sometimes business, they just keep moving forward and they might miss certain condition in terms of the legal aspect, in terms of the tax aspect or the accounting aspect. So we can fill up this gap so that we could become a complete business.
เกือบจะครบชั่วโมง
Time flies, almost an hour now. Let's look at some questions asking the audience. So I understand that silence means no questions. So if you have any questions, you can submit it by online and we will help answer the questions afterwards. Finally, I would like to thank all our keynote speakers, our panelists, sharing their experience and their knowledge. And I hope that the audience who participated today, you will apply some of these ideas to further develop and improve to be an accountant that the organization really truly wants. And furthermore is that to help each other develop the ASEAN accountants not only in Thailand but the entire region in the future. Thank you very much.
ครับจากที่
And after listening to this discussion, we have been informed what the business and organization expect from accountant professionals. And this is about preparation for those who accounting professionals at the ASEAN regional level. On this occasion, I would like to thank Mr. Susalak Nachinat and Ms. Borit and Mr. D.T. Pongchun for all highly. Next on the agenda, we want to invite Professor Rivana D.C., one of the ex-chairman of TFAC, to be on stage to take a group photo together.
กำลังพัฒนาครับขอเชิญวิทยากรนะครับร่วมถ่ายรูปกับ
All right, please come on stage and please turn your backs to the audience, face the screen, similar like in the morning, so that the photographer can take a photo of you and with the entire audience. And the audience, please stand up to be in frame.
สามารถชูมือบน
Don't forget to wave your hands. You can do that. That is allowed. Be animated in the photo.
ค่ะขอขอบพระคุณท่านวิทยากร
Thank you so much for all the panelists. And from now on, we'll have a 15 minutes break, and you can take the coffee or tea break in front of this conference room. And for those who are in Zoom, you can have a small break as well before we're moving on to the next session. And of course, the next session is also interesting, and I would like to ask everyone to be on time. Thank you so much. We'll have a 15 minutes break. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
ครับเรากลับเข้ามาสู่การเสวนาช่วงภาคบ่ายในช่วงที่2กันต่อแล้วนะครับโดยการเสวนาในช่วงนี้นะครับจะเป็นเรื่อง Readiness of ASEAN CPAs in the post-pandemic era ผู้ประกอบ
about the readiness of ASEAN CPAs in the post-pandemic era. And in this discussion, we'll be honored to have the chairman of the TFAC, คุณวินิต สราวังคง the chairman of TFAC, คุณพิชิต เลลาพรเมธา the board member and chairman of Accounting Professional Committee TFAC, and Patharavadi Nasang, board member and chair of the Management Accounting Professional Committee TFAC. Besides being the panelist, she will also be the moderator of the event. A round of applause for all our subject matter experts and panelists. Please, the floor is yours.
Greetings everyone for this afternoon session. Allow to call myself as my nickname. I'm not here alone, but I'm here with Mr. Vinit and Mr. Pichit on the right hand side or my left hand side. They are the gentlemen in this in the business industry as well as the accounting profession, and we have been in the industry for quite a long time. So for today's road, the content said that we want to discuss about the readiness of ASEAN CPAs in the post-pandemic era. I think this topic is really interesting because we are in the morning we're talking about are we ready to be mobilized to work in ASEAN country, but now in the afternoon session we started to see the real experience in the actual business, in the actual organization. What do they want from us, whether as the auditor or the accounting or the accounting cross field. So of course today we will discuss in many areas, and of course we will talk maybe beyond the pandemic era. So greetings both speakers, and before that I would like to ask all of the panelists to introduce themselves so that you would know, understand them a little bit more, and also know about the background. And of course, start from the right hand side. Mr. Vinit, could you explain your background and your perspective that you have with the CPA, please?
What do you mean, ASEAN CPA?
Okay.
Even more you want to. Well, greetings, Swadi, to all of you. This question is a question that I have prepared because these kind of preparations, we had a discussion. Like, you have direct experience when it comes to ASEAN CPA. At first, it was a bit kind of perplexing. And today, I must admit that ASEAN CPA is a topic that we've been discussing for quite some time. I've been out of the country for quite some time. But I must accept that the experience, personal experience, despite even with my career, I didn't have the opportunity with ASEAN CPA directly. Because honestly, my initial understanding is CPA was that the CPA that I'm really accustomed to. In fact, it's not. I was informed later on that it's not. Though this is to admit that, ask for forbearance first, is that it's a question that Ms. Mao asked me the direct experience with ASEAN CPA. I will answer to you, the audience, more than 100 here, which are ASEAN CPA. You're registered with accounting professions. I think there are about 20 here from the audiences. They probably some of you left us already, but to be honest, I do not have direct experience. But in my career, before I retired, we had discussions significantly about in the profession, especially at the firm. We've been discussing a lot when we want to provide services to our client in scenarios that they want to go overseas, such as big corporates that have investments overseas. What do we do? With the intent that to take care closely, manage them closely. And in the morning, you probably heard that this program, as of now, is still in the works, is still formulating. That is about the directors or the managers to be stationed and assigned in different countries overseas, especially to oversee our Thai clients overseas, similar to the Japanese, having companies in Thailand. And we need someone to truly understand someone about the regulations in that country. So we hire Japanese employees to manage customers, Japanese, for instance. To flow the question, our juniors that are assigned overseas, as you heard in the morning or just heard, I will tell you frankly that it's not truly ASEAN CPA. The important thing is this: the question is, can they follow through their responsibilities? Yes, they can. They can do well. They understand the accounting standards in Vietnam, the standards accounting in Indonesia, accounting standards in Malaysia and Singapore, for instance. So managing clients, there isn't an obstacle. So the issue is this: ASEAN CPA, as of now, that we've been discussing for a whole decade, and had an opportunity to talk to my seniors, especially to the former prime ministers. They even told me that when it comes to ASEAN CPA is an ASEAN form issue under the tutelage of AAC during that time. But the more importantly, as the Minister of Commerce mentioned, that to be able to be qualified, to be registered in that country, you have to go through 5 steps. These 5 steps, you can do it. You can do it well. It's been 700 of you here are registered ASEAN CPAs that we certified that you're under the TFAC. But the issue that's happening as of now that I've heard, there's about 2 or 3 of us that actually use the ASEAN CPA, and they're not using ASEAN CPA in its full content. If you went to the 10 countries ASEAN, there are regulations, there are laws of each country that will have as regulations themselves. So now, if you ask me, do I have direct experience of ASEAN CPA, more or less? This is a story that I want to share with you. When in application in laws, we have a lot of homework to do, that we should open such an opportunity about our 700 members here. If you are truly ready, you can actually transcend across borders into ASEAN countries, because we have to have reconcile discussions, open dialogue, that in the end, each country, are you truly open to accept foreigners? Do you allow mobilization of resources truly? So each country, think about this. Each country, you must reflect upon what is your national benefits first. There are so many questions from many of you. How about Thailand? And what did Thailand lead then? Open first. We have to ponder carefully. So if we have to make amendments in some laws and regulations, right? Even ASEAN CPA, okay, we accept that Thailand, for instance, opens up. I'm not sure if we get any benefits from it. And in the meantime, if we're outbound, I have not quite certain and confident that will be benefit for us too. So when it comes to this issue, I think it's political, at a regional political issue, that if you want ASEAN CPA to be accepted with the mobilization of resources truly at the ASEAN, at the regional level, truly, there are many issues that we must discuss. But in the meantime, we reflect upon ourselves. An example that I showed you at the former, just sent a moment ago or in the morning. For instance, for example, if corporate has the power to drive the accounts into the regions, yes, they can do. But we are not in the position to sign off anything, because like I told you, regulations, they don't allow it. For instance, if you're an accountant in Thailand, you can sign off on about to send to the Ministry of Commerce. You need someone as a licensed or registered accountant. Same thing. You can't sign it because you have no certification, right? You're just your knowledge. You're educated. You got skill set. You got the corporate to support you to send you overseas at a regional level. Therefore, when about the sign-off level and verification, is that we can't have the authority to do so. We have to amend a lot of regulations. So when in about the application about mobilization of resources, it's not in the direction or as in a vehicle for ASEAN CPO, but it's in a form about managing of the corporate of how we're going to drive our own resources into which country in the region with the objectives differently. This I want to share with you, Mal.
Thank you so much. I believe that this is really interesting because you as an experienced specialist and you has mentioned from the beginning that our effort and we're trying to reach out as a globalization, it starts from the ASEAN. There are many things that we have to overcome, whether it's going to be the obstacles or the regulation, of course, that is certainly. However, today's topic that we would like to ask for discussion, which is the readiness. So are we ready? In order for us to confront any obstacle, one day we'll have that chance, but if we're not ready, it might turn out in a lesser effectiveness. So now we would like to send to Mr. Pichit. I would like to ask and want to listen from your perspective. Maybe you can look from ASEAN CPA or as the person who do the accounting or those who has to manage in the larger corporation. What is your perspective?
ดีนะครับ
Well, hello once again. Well, my perception is from someone who's an accountant professional. I'm from SCG, by the way. SCG has a policy original for a long, long time. As of now, there are many juniors. They're sent overseas. There's 40 of us sending overseas, but we have no not any of the 40 is an ASEAN CPA. This point, I want to point out this: when it comes about necessity, I think, despite our own people, we just as ASEAN CPA, are you willing to sign off on it? Do you think you can really understand the language of that country you're assigned in? I think this is about the format that we may not necessarily need, but I do believe and truly support that I want our people to be registered as an ASEAN CPA, for which at least if we discuss or talk to the local people overseas, it will be an honor in different facet. But when it comes to accounting, I want to share some slides to open up your perspective or your point of view. Can come up with a slide. Let me put it this way. I see that in the different sessions, they touched upon about shared services. On this point, I want to share this, is that in the processes about doing accounting, as of the world, as of today, there may be traditional ways that every company, they have their own accountant. They may be the format of a business that outsource, they do the accounting for you, or even a format that a big corporation may use about shared service to do accounting. This point, I could tell you that the processes or the methodology in doing accounting has changed. It's changing. Shared services, I won't go down to details here, but there is a constant development, that continuous development, non-stop, non-ending, infinity. The tools are running towards us. Today, we are faced with COVID. We found that we can do accounting anywhere. We work from home, right? We didn't have to go into the office. We can work. I think this is point that will be a catalyst as a spark for you to ponder upon this. The processes of accounting from now onwards, how it's going to be, how it's going to look like. Next slide. I want to emphasize Thailand may be considered as giving emphasis on shared service very low. Or there's some groups of companies, big companies, that give importance to this, but many countries, they have a national policy as a hub of shared service and outsourcing. It's in parallel. Let's see it this way. Countries in the ASEAN region, Philippines or Malaysia, they are driving in this direction too. It means that it will link back to the ASEAN CPA. What does this mean to you? It means that these countries have the opportunity, a better opportunity than us as shared services. Next slide. And breaking down into minute details and sub-details that shared service in each segment and industry, outsourcing in each industry, they have changed in different format as well. So this is a point that I want to open up the floor to one point, the first point that, and ask, we as Thai accountants, we may open our point of view to make it even broader that this topic of discussion, how has it progressed? It's not only about ASEAN CPA, but it may also mean about advantage and disadvantage in your profession. I'll leave it here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pichit. And I think this is such a coincidence that we're in the similar industry and we're now working at CFOA at PTTGC, and earlier I was at Thai Oil. When we're talking about shared service, it is a management approach that we could achieve the accounting result, whether the accounting, the financial accounting, and also the management accounting. So of course we might have certain limitation as the accountant, but we are not stop here, but we are also trying to find the approach in order to serve with the ongoing businesses. And I believe that we have at least two businesses that are doing about the share services, and I see a little bit that there is the revolution from the share service. We might move forward into the global business service. I want to know about this one, because I believe this is the innovation in terms of in the accounting management. I believe that a lot of companies in the global level are using it, and even PTTGC also has been 100% acquired the business from the company called Allnex. We also see their secret weapon. We also have that GBS in a global level, and we want to know how could they manage that GBS or the global business service, and how can we implement. I believe everyone started to want to know more. And in terms of the accounting management, there are many approaches that for us who are in this ASEAN CPA forum, that we have to broaden our perspective in order to acquire more knowledge from these panelists, so that we can enlighten and broaden our holistic knowledge. And we also need to find the collaboration with not only in the CPA, ASEAN CPA, but we also have to collaborate and gather hands together in order to get the support from the digitalization that is available. Now we're not only in this conference room, and we also have the people from the Zoom room. Who knows, these tapes might be delivered to other generation as well. And the most important point is, because of the topic is the word post-pandemic era, we don't know how would the pandemic be only the COVID-19? It might be something else. So we would like to re-emphasize that for the past few years, it seems like the business is being seized. But when we're seeing at the business performance, industrial performance, a lot of business can have the end of the balance sheet, and they can have their business performance. But under these smoothness, like it might come with chaos, with business, and of course we might be really tired. I want Mr. Winnet to share for the past 2 years, how was it?
เชิญค่ะ
Well, shit, I'm happy. You know why? Because I'm retired. Well, let's talk about post-COVID here. You have to understand the landscape of pre-COVID first. When it comes to COVID, it's an issue. It's big, understandably, especially the first 2 years. But one thing that I'm truly confident that you won't forget, especially those that are in the business about technology or even accounting. Pre-COVID, we discussed about technology disruption. We had discussion about digitalization. Prior to that, about 2 or 3 years ahead. Before that, we even had discussions about work from home or work from anywhere, even pre-COVID days, because technology has arrived into society, even about profession that will be disrupted by technology and digitalization even before COVID. COVID is a catalyst. How about this? We have about many essays, many journals that wrote about this, that COVID is a catalyst to make all these disruptions come to fruition faster than expected. So whatever happened in our profession, it happens before 2 to 3 years. Many organizations, they have prepared about these issues for quite some time. During that time, I was as a service provider. Clients often asked about tools. They asked about platform. They asked about technologies in aiding their auditing efforts many times, especially about the big corporations when they asked us to show our products, right? That was pre-COVID days, even before COVID. Happened a long time, but for us, our adjusting capability was a bit slower than others. But COVID is a catalyst for us to apply technology as fast as possible to solve many issues, because clients don't allow us to visit their office. The building's closed. We have to find technology, and we have to find that catalyst in speed, rapidly. So when it comes to issue about work, without even COVID, these things will be inevitable. The issue is this: from now onwards, after COVID is going to be something normal. And in this moment, what are we facing? What are our challenges? What things that we're going to deal from now on? And we have survived about 3 to 4 months ahead. It's not COVID only. It's about some variables that is a mixture that we don't even know. Even the conflict between countries, or about supply chain issues, or issues on inflation. These issues that is a mix. It's not post-COVID any longer. But the question that leaves to you is that as business owners and accounting professionals, especially those are in the ecosystem of the accounting world, what are you going to do? Audit is a different story. Accounting is a different story. Separated too. So accounting profession or audit profession, you have to ponder many facets. And we have been thinking about this process really long time. Let me give you another sample. As of now, we are dealing with post-COVID. It's not that severe. But we have discussing in the board, or even the top management, we're discussing about, are we going to survive? Do we have a plan 2 or plan B? I do believe that you have attended many conferences. You have heard from many analysts that it's inevitable about the things that happen. But Thailand, we were lucky that we relied on 2 or 3 things that can drive these things. And the reason why we were slower to adopt it. But we also discussed that what happens if people do not travel? What do we do next? The global demand for the industries is in decline, because we have to discussing that, do you have a standby credit, such as if a worst case scenario, what you're going to do? Especially if big corporations that have massive investments, not only in Thailand, but investment in the region, or even in Europe, for instance. They review the plans, revisit the plans and investment portfolios. So at this point, I want to ask you is that, as you are in the ecosystem, as accounting and audit professionals, how are you going to deal with these? Well, we have to research the same thing, the basic things like accounting. What are the issues you want to tackle on? When it comes to auditing, they have to be in progress quite some advanced for a while now, with basically the application of tools that working anywhere, any platforms. We've been discussing about this about big firms, but if you are a small firm that without that significant investments, it's not the impact when that's severe. That's just purchase some tools to aid in your work methods. Let's do round 1 first, because Ms. Mal asked me for only 5 minutes. Okay, so.
เวลาจะไม่พอ
I prepared like 10 questions. Afraid that we don't have enough time. So, what about you, Mr. Pichit?
ต่อไป
Yeah, I'd like to build upon Mr. Readiness that when you digital disruption, I would like to thank this phrase. because this term actually arrived before COVID, and it's a term that has been impacted and attacked us, professional accountants, because accounting professionals, we are going to be disrupted by digitalization. The risk are the highest professions at risk. How about this? We were lucky for our profession that we were prepared. We prepared tools. We prepared the systems. We prepared our people that will be moving forward with IT. When COVID hit, I could remember clearly that the challenge to operations must continue. People must be safe. That was the commands from the top brass. So it means the office were closed, right? For the safety of the people, everyone must work from home. Absolutely. The analysis at first stage, we're confident that our system can operate. We have BCM plan, BCP plans in place. But we never made a plan or scenario that everyone was at home. We only had scenarios that, okay, we moved an office. How many branches are we going to have? So how are we going to move and transport? But this time, it's risk management truly in real life. But it's not about the scale for everyone can be at home. The system wasn't designed to be that to hold on to manage that much traffic. So, for instance, everybody went home and they came to the central server when everyone was on the system at the same time. Everybody has their own VPN. We weren't prepared for that. So we used some time to set up, open up the system. So, to put it frankly, it's about collaboration from every department, because collaboration, if everyone cooperates, we can do it. So coming back to your answer, this is one of the benefits that when we think that it's the age of IT, the golden age, the gilded age of IT, in fact, and the application of IT and technology, that we made these things possible, and we slowly iterated, step by step. First, we may perceive this or call this, we were working a little bit slow, but at least there's progress. But most importantly, like Mr. Winit has emphasized, and I truly believe, COVID enabled everyone to adjust themselves. If you want to reimburse expenses, you have to take photographs and send an image to us. The accountant will apply, right? Instead of image from a photocopy machine, an image from a mobile phone to authorize reimbursement. And then after that, we will close the book and clear it later on using the actual receipt to do it. This is how it enabled business to move forward. So I think COVID enabled the system, testing our people, and everything that's linked, tested. And I think it will be something that we have further discussion on what's our next step.
And you have mentioned about the accelerator, and Mr. Pichit, you also said that the system that we have laid out, is it enough? Can we overcome with these system? I also agree, because for the past 2 years, I'm not sure whether it's my luck or what, but I changed the business during the COVID, and instead of meeting people by face to face, I have to meet my colleague with the screen. And of course, inside all the crisis, we always can find the opportunities. And these opportunities, imagine during the COVID era, this coronavirus has forced us to work under the constrained condition. Like for us, SCCB has launched the bond, and usually it takes about 10 days or more than that in order to launch about $500 million for the bond. In the past, about 3 to 4 days, but because of the COVID, we can launch the bond within 1 day. And of course, inside the crisis, we always has the opportunities because there's the forcing pull and pushing forces that we could use, and I believe this is the ecosystem for those like whether it's CFO, CPA, and accountant. This is the ecosystem for the business, and at the end of the day, we have to have the meeting in the room in order to list out all the important stuff. And of course, we can't do a physical meeting. We can do a digital meeting, and when we have only the main or the important meeting that we can call in for the meeting, and we have a shorter and more precise meeting. We have to prepare beforehand before entering to the meeting, and now we're getting used to the efficiency more than ever. And from now on, for the reporting, we will have certain kind of like pattern. People will understand more about the information, and this is like some kind of practice that this coronavirus it doesn't catalyzing about the work like digitalization, but also catalyze us to think faster and to do faster. And of course, on the other hand, this is only one crisis. The past pandemic, it's just a coronavirus and it's just mutant. Right now, we're facing something more than that. Like today is the fluctuation. We have a lot of fluctuation. For example, like oil price. In the past, it was just it's cheaper than this, but now because of the Russian-Ukraine war, it just skyrocket, and then the diesel price also increased, and we also don't know about the climate change. What's gonna happen? And then somehow it's the price getting lower, and then now OPEC they cut out the supply, so now the price keep coming up, and now the fluctuation can come from many factors, and now we have the global recession and many other factors. So I want you all to share, or maybe you Mr. Vinit, what have you faced or what have you had to overcome? And of course, we're overcoming of the pandemic, but we're now in the business that we are confronted with a lot of problem. And what is the readiness as the ASEAN CPA? What is our next step? We want to ask you both, Mr. Vinit first.
Well, all of us probably know that today there are many factors always constantly changing. For me, for instance, let me give you an example. Oil prices, expensive. Interest is expensive. Currency exchange, inflation of the Thai, weakening of the Thai baht. I think if you use all these factors and combine it together, this world is kind of hard to live in. But it's something that is inevitable. So, it's something that you must prepare your readiness, not only about business. If you ask, so do you have to create a risk management portfolio? These issues are in the plan or not? It is in the plan. But when we consider each factor, we will think about separately, right? But when it comes and hits us at the same time, it's a challenge that we will have to confront and survive and fight it. But at this age, the most important thing is about VUCA. Because we have no pattern, because it's volatile, uncertainty, ambiguous, and
เกิดเต็มรูปแบบ
happens full scale, at full speed. So, we have to prepare and to cope. It's not about just planning, but it's about a plan that has flexibility and adjustable all the time. So let's coming back to our accounting topic here. If they're facing with such situations and conditions, absolutely, the accounting will have to answer their needs too, especially when it comes and analysis, managing accountancy, that how you expect forecast. This is what is really interesting, and I think is an opportunity for accountant profession. We may be good at analysis, we're good at data, but therefore the opportunity is in front of you. But I want you to realize this one thing. You are good at data that is substantial. But in this age is where data comes to you from all directions and all forms. It's not about only data from information, but accountancy. Information must be able to be selected. So information is tremendous. It's around you. Therefore, it's a challenge for an accountant to open up your mind, open up your point of view, open up your mindset, and learn, upskill yourself, digitalization, IT, and I think we as accountants can support the business. I can't say that this is finite.
And now you are mentioning about VUCA, like all the black swan, all the uncertainty under VUCA. So now, Mr. Pinnis, is there anything that we have to fear of?
Oh my God, you just laid out the picture. So scary, fearful. Let's talk about accounting as a profession. We're forget separate from us, okay? Because he's the chairman as a profession committee. In this kind of situation, which I truly understand that all of you probably know that about sooner or later, there'll be some situation that's going to hit us. When it comes about the audit profession, we have to review that because we provide services. We have to review how we're going to work so that we can risk manage, especially when we, as the role we are auditing, that we have to audit about their budget, annual fiscal year, about 3 months ahead of time, or 2 months from now, that for listed companies. So I believe that as of now, we have to revisit of the audit strategy to make it clear that our plan from the beginning of this year, and it's about 2 quarters, and now we're in quarter 3, and both in domestic and external markets, what are the factors that has changed, especially as Mr. Bishop mentioned. As you can see, many factors, variables that may have some impact on the numbers, the digits, especially in the budget. So when the processes about managing about auditing about the budget is that you have to revisit and review sooner than this, especially the discussion with the top management as soon as possible. A mutual understanding what are the issues the management is facing, and understanding issues that we are good at from our office, that we can be as someone to help them decide that we can manage for them. Another issue that is quite interesting, these factors, we have to perceive it that audit is a service job. Therefore, one thing that we must be certain that we have give or feed the information to our clients is it constant, because we must admit that there are some gaps. Even management may be busy about day-to-day operations, but at the same time, the expectations from the stakeholders, that's really about budget, especially with those listed companies. We have to understand that their expectations are what. Because as of now, at this moment, many of you probably understand the regulators are fearful, right? They're uncertain, especially about the volatile environment and what we're about to face in about 3 to 4 months ahead from now on. So these issues that they are also they have some anxiety in the air. So these things we have to communicate to our clients to have them understand. Thirdly, it's big. It's about people within our organization and our firm, no matter if you're big or small. I think that the communications that internally within the firm, that from now on in our final quarter or the quarter 1 from next year or quarter 2 of next year, our people, do they understand the economics? How well they know that will impact from the budget that we are responsible in. Our resources have to understand this. If they don't understand this, we have to have clear communications about risk management or even auditing or even the processes about our work. These things must have a clear understanding, and teamwork is so vital. Because, for instance, if the owner of the firm or our senior partner, they only know from the top down, right? And at the bottom, which is the workforce, the operations, they don't know about it. When they work, it's going to be really, really challenging because, they're moving from different directions. In the end, all the subordinates, right, they're working in the routine work in the same time. When the budget may be changed completely from quarter 2 compared to quarter 1. So when we decide for the team to show the direction, communications internally must be really clear. Some firms may lack information. If you like it, search it. Our committee as accounting professions, this is something that we try our best in trying to feed information about audit issues, or even in the past 2 years, we try to find tools when it comes to is the formats, the forms on digitalized or the checklist that is of vital importance. And at this moment, we even create a program that to aid you, to help you to find samples. This is something that will follow suit, and you can follow it to our official website so that you can catch up with the latest news and adjust within the your situation, the environment that you mentioned.
And I have listened that you have been talking about the planning. So when we're talking about VUCA, it can't be too systematic. We need to have that flexibility in order to be able to adapt with these changes. And you have warned us about the resource management, especially for the auditor, not only from the enterprise aspect only, but also for the auditor as well. So coming back to this, for us as the person who use the resources, we also have to prepare the information for the auditors. Of course, that all the fluctuation that happen in VUCA, it comes every week, every day. Sometimes the systematic that we have or the approach in terms of the accounts that we have been planned, sometimes it can't be interpreted. For example, that the derivative value reading. There are sometimes that we're trying to do accommodate, trying to understand. Sometimes when there are the fluctuation and we don't even know what's going to happen next. For example, during the Russian and Ukraine war, that they're trying to cut out the gas pipe and stuff, the price keep going up and down, that we can't find out the floor price, and the price that has been quoted by the financial institution, they just do it for the sake of doing it, and there's no meaning for it. So in order for us to create the derivative value at the end of the fiscal year, the next question is, what is the right, what is the wrong? There's no judgment on that anymore. So now we have to talk with the management level. We have to talk with the accountants, those in the industry, in order to find what is the actual value. And we have to come back in terms of the accounting standards. And of course, we have this in every single month that we have to talk in different issues. And there are a lot of fluctuation and really difficult to predict. So it's coming back to my point that for those who are working in the accounting field, in about auditing field, CPA field, we may have to blend the knowledge across the field, because in these career path, we also have like the strategy, the finance, and also we trying to create the advanced certification for CMMA or the Charter Management Accountant as well. This is the blending the cross knowledge to be imparted into individual professionals, because we need to have that holistic knowledge and to become the professional so that we can equip with all the knowledge. We are not doing taking the test to get the certificates, but we could launch the sheets and those financial information that we can provide the knowledge, and we can send explain the information. At the same time, we can summarize it in the important manner. So we would like to talk about the future. In the future, the world has been shaken in many factors that we have mentioned earlier, and that lead many companies to talk about the transformation or to be able to survive. But for the word transformation, many companies was talking about VUCA, talking about megatrend, like for today's megatrend, for example, like the demographic shift. Right now, we are not old anymore. We are nearly our age. We are about to hit about 60s. The population are getting healthier, live longer. So if we're talking about wellness and healthcare, people are taking care of their health and their well-being more. When we're talking about the cities and town, there are many branches that we could visit in the future. And when we're talking about digitalization, we have mentioned already, and the next one is about low carbonization. This is one of the trends when we're talking about ESG. This is one of the issue that as the accountant or to do CFA or anyone who are in this CPA related field, how can we prepare ourselves and get ready? This is also one of the factors that I would like to set, because maybe we might have to prepare ourselves. And in terms of your perspective, Mr. Pichit. And I believe that this is one of the few mega trend, and it has overcome the recession and also the COVID. And after this, then we will come back into the normal session that people will start to transform. What is your perspective?
Well, I think that the interesting thing about trends is that working after this age, how's it going to look like? Absolutely. We clear that IT is going to play a part of our work and our career and our profession. But IT, the direction, let's talk about that later on, is another big issue. But when it comes to people, the past 2 years, I remember that at the beginning, that when we had a policy for work from home, many people were really happy, and they still wanted to come to the office. Past 2 years, I said, okay, come back to work to the office. Some of them, or the same amount, they don't want to come back to work for the office anymore. And our accounting profession, our accounting jobs, how do you do it? What are the methods to do it? What are the processes for it to create efficiency and effectiveness? What are the tools? How we're going to design it? I want to use this opportunity. Let's talk about transborder countries. Let's talk about CPA as the topic of the day. So, this means that you can be anywhere and you can be responsible for the work overseas. You can be at home, sit in how you want. This is a point that is really, really interesting. And especially during COVID, there's one thing that is a phenomenon of what they can't travel. People can't travel. There is an issue with supply chain or the ecosystem that was disrupted. Therefore, this is a point that you may have these kind of issues and then filter it out, combine it, and redesign it totally. That in truth, when it comes to work, how should work look like, the future of work? Does it answer the needs of our newer generations? Our newer generations is a happy work life as a theme. And is there a way, how can we design work that is truly happy for them? Many people often mention about coming to the office 2 days, 3 days, or even once a week or something. I think these things, I want to leave it as a big hanging issue, right? Make it big. Maybe a way of work plus a system and tools that enable working of the future will totally change. And as an accountant, may not be changing anytime soon, but I'm not certain. But how about in the field of audit, maybe actually change sooner? So what's the question again? Okay, we have the technology applications about the way you work, that you can work, in long distances. According from your discussion, Mr. Cope, is that I think that when we have advanced technologies for our use, it's create the opportunity for us to work without any barriers, such as face-to-face. As a work group, that you have to be face-to-face or else, even before COVID existed or not. In the ecosystem, in the audit profession, these things have been around for quite some time. Let me give you an example. We discussed about the audit platform, a type of platform that enables you can work at the office, accessing information that comes to see the client, or some of our employees may have after audits format, and then sent by electronic means to electronic platform, or the review processes are everything done transaction on screen. This was even before COVID. It has been like this for quite some time in big firms. Therefore, the characteristics of interaction of physical face-to-face has disappeared for quite some time. But the policy of some offices, they still wanted face-to-face, have some interaction, human interaction, that when we have a wrap-up, at least come visit the client's office, at least face-to-face, talking eye to eye. It can increase about communications at a higher level. Therefore, the trend that has hit us with technology, even such as whatever aspect of technology, it has been heading in that direction for quite some time. Therefore, when we felt an interaction with our ecosystem of even accounting or the audits is quite, the physical meetups is actually lessened. But the question is that when we discuss the entire ecosystem of the big firms only, we have other firms that are small and medium sized, or even firms that are big, but they're not interested in the global network. How do you do with them? But what are we doing right as of now that we experienced? We still use conventional systems, which is working with, like when I was as a junior staff many years back, we used to use paper at maximum, spreadsheet on Excel. This is something is really interesting that with the question is that how can we apply technology into our firms? Finally, it comes back to this with this starting question: are you ready to invest? How much you're willing to invest? Many places that I had the opportunity to talk to were quite undecisive about investing because they said that if they invested, they were uncertain what about the benefits in the long run, especially when the employee was working 2 to 3 years with us and then decided to resign. I think it's about an egg or chicken question here, which comes before. If the staff do not see that you're investing investing in technology to help the work better, especially in a world that's changing, the environment is changing, especially the new generations, they're not going to bear with you. They're going to they're going to escape from you and find new places to improve, to upskill themselves, finding a better working environment so that they can grow in the future. Therefore, these issues, the owner of the firm, or shareholders, right, or senior partners of the firm, you must ponder truly and seriously that if you want a firm that's more sustainable, investing may be necessary. If you don't do it, you'll not be able to keep your talent, especially the talent that are in Generation Z or the millennial generations. They're fed up with you. So this is why the high likelihood that they're going to resign from you is very high. So I truly vouch and truly support that when it comes to ecosystem and investing, and especially accounting or even audit profession, there are so many tools available that you can use. Therefore, you may actually improve the IT technology skills at a higher level as much as possible as someone or at a certain level that you can invest, but not investing at all. Don't do it. Invest a little bit as much as you can and apply it. Your partners must discuss among yourself that you want to have a firm to grow sustainably, and you have the resources that are capable in aiding you in the way you work. You have to change many things. This is one of the factors that went to technology and resource management with the answer to the notion that how can we deal with technology and digital disruption or even expectations of the future, of the coming future. You must imagine about this. There's so many things I can discuss about that we can talk a bit more.
Actually, I have to say that what you two has mentioned when we're talking about you have to be able to use digitalized tools. If we can overcome this recession, I believe that even in the global recession, the chance that the business would grow, there will be more chances to expand the business. And we can see from the organic growth or even the long-term investment, because the market has changed rapidly. Usually we'll see that a lot of businesses will do M&A or to join as a partner. Maybe in a few months they might transform out to be other type of business. So now talking about this, the transaction will be getting higher and higher, getting more and more. And of course, with the limited of human resources, we'll have the resistance in terms of the business demand and the limited resources that we have in the company. So in order for us to overcome this, like what Mr. Pichit has said earlier, that we have to do pool resources in order to create the maximum potential and maximum efficiency. Or even when Mr. Vinit said that we need to use technology as much as possible, for GC we also have this as well. Like in terms of using the blockchain technology to check all the procurement documents or all the banking documents or even the automation. So because like this we can use with many vendors so that we could save the time, and I believe that this will be the trend that a lot of you might face. But most importantly, we can't let the robots or the computer to work by itself without any monitoring or even we can't control about it. So we might have new role. So instead of doing the record, we might have to be the one to record all these robots in the future. Therefore, we need that holistic knowledge to know about the working process and to see that the value that they has calculated, is it correct or not, and how can we fix that. And another thing that we could do the resource management is, apart from the shared service and also the digitalization, it might be about the, I have to say that in the ASEAN region, if we are lack of the resource and the chance that company to invest in overseas, for example, like the company who might want to invest in the States or in the Europe, of course, we want to send our accountants or the financial manager to oversee. However, because the lacking of the skill in terms of the local standards in those countries, and of course, these countries, they also want the local to work in the company, and that's the reason why they have to hire the local in those countries. However, at the same time, the foreigners also want to come to work with us because they see the potential of growth in ASEAN. So the foreigners who want to work with us, we also have a quite number of them. So we need to find the number of the profession, not only in ASEAN, but to try to pull people coming in where there is the demand. And I believe this will be really essential. And imagine we have been discussed for about a few, like quite certain hours, and we have about 15 minutes left. I would like to talk about the soft side. It could be like the culture aspect or the characteristic of the accountant or CPA or auditor. In the future, what is the characteristic of these people so that we could become successful, and at the same time we can devote it not only to the company but also for the society as well. As our profession, what kind of people do you want?
I think those who are accounting profession has changed a lot. You may have heard from our seniors about, they teasing you. That the world has changed. That if you deal with a big firm, such as GC, SCJ, people that are in the accounting department, their characteristics and demeanor has changed for quite some time. So when it comes to the soft side, and something that people are aware about it, it may begin like this. That when we have been discussing about this for quite some time, and discussing a lot about this, that an accountant, yeah, you're like that. Yeah, that's their meaning is like that, right? It's always a negative context. But this has been adjusted within the organization for quite some time to transform their own people internally, that with the intent that they can work with other departments. And I'm truly confident that these big corporations, when you even mention them, you probably know them. The culture has changed. The culture about investing in their own people, in the culture of giving importance to all departments and divisions, or even in departments that we often see them as a department that they can't work with anyone at all, cooperate with anyone at all, or such as IA, like internal audit. Back in the day, they are in a corner somewhere, and they're accounted in another corner. And for me, in the past decade, I saw these changes in front of my eyes because the corporate culture has changed significantly when about to manage and oversee your employees and staff, to adjust and develop their soft side, and to work and cooperate with other departments and teams, especially teams internally within themselves, and they're able to work cross-functional teams to support with marketing, a management team, administration team, or even IA for internal audits with strategy, instead of just only transaction oriented or audit oriented. Is heading this direction. And in this moment, our human resources in the human resources auditors, don't even mention about big firms. It has changed tremendously. Why? Because the corporates and the firm, they have to adjust themselves, or else the next generation, no matter if big corporate or firms that are audits, no matter what's the big size, they won't able to retain talent. They won't able to retain this generation because these kids have a different mindset. So we don't adjust the organization to support the way or to manage them or to perceive the problems in the new generation that should be like that. We won't be able to retain the new generation talent. Don't even about compensation, monetary compensation. No, this is about soft side. All of us will be able to see many firms are trying with interacting with their staff more, providing fringe benefits besides monetary compensation with the intent to adjust themselves to work with other departments. For instance, like accounting plus audit that needs to provide services to clients. We can't have a staff that truly black and white, okay? That they're to be that won't be able to communicate and discuss with the client or not be in cooperation with the client, because human resources is a massive issue that to ensure that if we send this person, send this team, this partner, this manager, and to deal with this, interact with this client, the client will understand and appreciate, not send someone and then they won't be able to have a conflict with the client. That would be bad, right? Accounting or audits, right? This is the direction that on both sides, on this aspect of the soft side. Personally, I think we're not that bad, right? I think there are a direction that we can move forward, but in the future, we have to be prepared that there's so many things that we can add on that the next generations may have to change their perception or their mindset, or may find some new tools to attract them to retain their talent with us as long as possible. Like what you built upon, you sir, is that I totally agree that the auditor or the accountant of these days was far better than the conventionally. But I want to share two perceptions here that I think there's room for improvement. For instance, if we intend that our profession to be strengthened, to be robust, right, and compared to other professions, I think that communications we need to improve continuously. So that how can we communicate? There's sometimes that we fall into the trap of the processes of how we do accounting. And this is a result that the way we communicate, the misunderstanding from the other party. Another issue, let's compare this with our neighboring ASEAN country. This, I think, is really put forth and truly supported that our neighbor, they have some enthusiasm with intent. Thai people, we are like the best, like in or the home stage, for instance. That it's like a sword in a sheath, right? But if we have to draw out the sword, we can do it. That's an analogy here. But normally, we don't often be the first to say something about it. But there's that we have to build our next generation, that if we don't show what we got, the competition in this region, we may be at a disadvantage.
And we can't deny that. I totally agree with you, because when I have been doing a lot of collaboration with the CFA, I have to say that we truly understand each other. We have those service mind, and we're trying to share the auditor perspective with the audit com. So we're trying to close the gap between the different perspective, and I see that as an important or a great meaning. So we have to admit that we have our own technical terms or technical language that we understand, but the management level might not understand. So adjusting and improving the communication is something that is really interesting. And not only that, improve for the people surrounded around you is not enough, but we have to improve our communication with the team by doing the influencing and convincing to have that fire in order to overcome the obstacle with these communication. I believe that this is invaluable. To use that soft power, it is really effective. And not only that, you can get the heart of the people as well. And lastly, in my personal opinion as the profession, the talent or the successor are really important. Sometimes when we identify the successor as the management accounting or the accountant, we might put the name, but when we have to have the mobilize the name, we see that this person might lack of that skill, lack of that talent. So for those accountants at the age of around 40 to 50 years old, you might have to clone that person and you have to add on new stuff in that new world, and you have to create or develop these people at the successor at least about 2 to 3 people. And after we have mentioned until now, we have about 5 minutes. And I believe that everyone is still here with us while waiting for the closing remark for our panelists. Thank you for the question. I'm not sure who should be the one to answer, but I believe it's supposed to be Mr. Winit. The question is the performance of the financial reward. Can you explain, can you compare in different countries in the ASEAN region? It could be Thai, ASEAN, Thai, Europe, something like that.
Okay, from experience here, is that if you perceive that with this kind of question is interesting, because there's some of us here that they have intent of going overseas to other ASEAN nations, and they really want to know about the benchmark for the compensation package. Let's explain to you on a broad scale here from experience. Like Singapore is number 1. Singapore is about 3 to 4 to 5 times more in the same market salary package that we shared in the market in your profession. Sometimes 3, sometimes not even enough. Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thai. It's interesting that the compensation is at the same level in the accounting profession. Many say that Malaysia should be higher than us. From the opportunity for face-to-face wasn't retired yet. When we hired fresh graduates in the audit profession, our countries are quite same. It's similar, same level. Indonesia, absolutely, it's not higher than us. Vietnam, in some companies, because Vietnam, you must accept that there's some issues that try to poach talent, especially in this kind of economy, because the economy in Vietnam is booming. But when it comes to salary packages, Vietnam is quite similar, maybe a little bit lower than Thailand. But I don't want to see as monetary as a big issue here. When if you look about interest into work in this region, Thais, you must accept that from my direct experience, Mr. Kobe, you may also have to add on, is that when we wanted to find someone in the region, just in any countries in the ASEAN region, it's hard to find because we're not familiar with working overseas, such as maybe your personal preference, family issues, culture, or your own mindsets into your comfort zone. Which I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong about it, because Thais are in the conference for quite some time. So when you want to find someone to be assigned in any country in this region, it's hard to find. And this is why we have to add the incentive as a compensation package. It's one of the challenges that I want to recommend this. Because for those who, the person who asked this question, when it comes to monetary package, that's one issue. But when you add on to the exposure to oneself to be overseas, as the morning panel and the panel before us, is that they gave us the directions that you got an international experience. You got the experience in dealing with complex issues that's outside Thailand. You got experience about learning about the mindset and the way, the logic of the ASEAN neighboring countries. These you can't compare to monetary value, but you can build upon that about the way your career in the future. This is why I think monetary compensation is important. But if you have an opportunity, I truly encourage, like Mr. Cope said, that I may have said that maybe discouraging you, like, or trying to, okay, you got your license ASEAN CPA, what do you do next? Try to get your license ASEAN CPA. And I truly encourage you to find a way to work overseas in this region. It will create exposure and experience for you to be more robust exposure working overseas. And you may have to sacrifice some issues first to get that experience as a plus to your CV and resume in the future. So this is truly appropriate. Get the ASEAN CPA because out of other regions we're low. It's about 10%. Singapore and Malaysia, everyone wants to try to get the ASEAN CPA because they want to come here to Thailand here to be posted overseas. We got this issue here in this country. So once you pass the ASEAN CPA and then your weak points is about communications. And Mr. Goh mentioned that if you go to Vietnam or even be posted in neighbor countries like in the east, like Cambodia, like they're enthusiastic, right? After their work office hours, they have English tutoring lessons, right? This is interesting. I truly encourage you, try to get an opportunity to work overseas in the region so that you'll get exposed, experience.
ยังไม่จบ
Thank you so much. I have less than a minute. However, I still have a question I would like to ask Mr. Pichit about the educational system, about the accounting courses. Post-COVID, should we adjust the courses?
Well, we're lucky that I had the opportunity to have discussions to many universities. I think that universities in Thailand, anywhere you go, they're quite proactive in about adjusting their curriculum, and they have invited the students, universities, and specialists in many fields. I've seen they have to change their curriculum and the content of universities. It's really, really interesting. And I want to share, I went to University of Chiang Mai, and UC, University of Chiang Mai, they have to cooperate with the Department of Engineering, and they have a minor, IT. A minor that taught by an engineering professor, and they collaborated with the Faculty of Science as well as a minor, which another name, I can't remember the name correctly, and it was taught by a professor from the Faculty of Science. I even taught at the University of July. They were talking in the same tone too. So I think in this point is that with the environment of today, each faculty or any profession are blending together. It means about cooperation, about co-creation, and redesign the whole entire system together. So if I want to say about this kind of mindset or in SDG, from now onwards, accounting, you will on the hard side and accounting only is not it. You have to be especially in hard side on accounting and IT as well is mandatory. And absolutely for certain, you must have soft skills too. Good soft skills, but accounting only may be obsolete in the future.
It is really interesting. I believe that we need to have the second part. However, because of the constraint of the time, do you have any last word that you would like to pass on to us?
TFAC, we saw the importance of the ASEAN CPA. Truly, even Deputy Prime Minister of Orbit has been informed that as national policy for quite some time that we have 700 ASEAN CPAs. We haven't done anything substantial for the ASEAN CPA at all. Therefore, today's exhibition, today's event, is true intention of the PM's, Deputy Prime Minister Orbit, that we have to be part of ASEAN CPA, despite the fact there's like 200 or 300 of us here. He, fundraises, investing in these initiatives to host such events for you. But importantly, furthermore, besides that even the committee members or even the Prime Minister to truly support all our members, especially on this topic of ASEAN CPA. I want to invite all of you. The knowledge of the Committee of Accounting has been increasing a lot. So please try to find advantage of it, right? Get the benefits of it, especially any progress, right? Especially the ASEAN CPA or TFC or Mr. Mao or Mr. Gop. There's so many associations. But one thing you can't forget that I truly want to invite you is accounting professionals or even the auditors or even accountants or even anyone in the accounting ecosystem. Try to get exposure as much as possible at the regional level, especially in the ASEAN member states. If you have this opportunity to be approached by that, they want you to push you to come to their country, find someone somewhere close, 1 hour flight. Don't let this opportunity slip out of your hands. This is an opportunity that for you to go overseas in the ASEAN region, and it will increase your know-how and your skill sets in the long run. So I'll leave this to you for now, because Ms. Mao will have 2 to 3 more sessions to cover all the details.
Thank you so much. And what about you?
And from the part of someone who does accounting for our committees, that we're open for those who want to be registered and get a license, an accounting certificate. That as of now, there are those 2 batches and rounds of that, those who are certified, that can be registered to be ASEAN CPA. I can tell you right now is that many times, Thai people, we fear about the language impediments. But one thing I want to share, there are many juniors that went overseas, worked overseas. A lot of them worked overseas. Those that met with success were successful, or those that weren't gifted in language, let's put it this way. But it turns out that these were able to adapt themselves with the working environment. Therefore, language, just, usable. Don't worry about it too much, and open up yourself, open your mindset, open your perspective. I want to think that I realized one thing in this conclusion is that Thai people is ready to live in any province within this country, but they're worried if they're going to live overseas. But if anyone in the ASEAN region, if they can choose to go overseas, they will go overseas, but they will not work in any province in their country. This is the different point of view from the ASEAN peoples here. So we have to reflect upon yourself that when the opportunity opens up for you, leave it to you. Even the committee is ready to support you.
Thank you, both of you. And we can ensure that even if we are waiting for the adjustment of the curriculum, but it might be on time. But of course, even though we have various obstacles, but we also have partners and also the monitoring committees and also a lot of consultant committees, and we are willing to provide all the suggestions and consultants for contribution, for being taking part in this group. And thank you so much for Mr. Winit and also Mr. Pichit. Thank you so much.
ค่ะ
So what have we listened from this panel discussion? We have learned and aware of the process that the accountants has to be prepared and get ready during the era after the post-pandemic era. And I would like to thank you, Ms. Patharada Sangasang, Mr. Winit Silamongkon, and Mr. Pichit Leelapan Mehta for this opportunity. And I would like to invite Ajahn Nolapon Nimsambun to come up on the stage and to have a photo session together with the panelists.
ขอเรียนเชิญท่าน
I would like to invite all the panelists to take a group photos on the stage.
ครับและเช่นเดิมนะครับขอเรียนเชิญท่านวิทยากรนะ
Please, our keynote speakers, please turn your back to the audience and face the screen. Because audience, please stand up so that you'll be in the photograph. Please stand up. Don't forget, show some hand gestures. Thank you, thank you, thank you all. Please, our next keynote speakers to our next panelists, next round of panelists, please come on stage.
And now we're moving to the last panel discussion session. So for the next hour, we'll talk about the ethical value, and for this session will be under the topic of nurturing the ethical value in the diverse and changing world environment. And we have the panelists, and allow me to introduce our panelists. Mr. Prakorn Penpakun, advisor to subcommittee for the ethics codes setting TFACT. Mr. Sudwin Panyawong Khanti, subcommittee for the ethics code setting TFACT. Please give them the round of applause once again, and the stage is yours.
Greetings, Swadikap, to all our members from our TFAC members, those domestically in Thailand and those overseas. And so today we were honored to talk about ethics. When it comes to ethics, the intent as to lay the foundations for all our members, of all the ASEAN members, especially for Thailand, we have a committee, of the ethical committee, which is considered is independent from any committee from the TFAC, which and members of the ethical committee is independent and has been submitted and authorized in the National Assembly annually, and is independent, and the committee that the two of us are residing as committee members that to direct the policy of the ethics. And when it comes, the Ethics Committee of Thailand is something that we followed, gone to the Committee of International Selection of ISBA, and at the same time we follow suit with act of during this time. there's an evolution of about the preparation to be proceeding in the future, which is, and this moment occasion is about the development in accordance of the Accountant Professional Act, BE 2005-47. Now, let's talk about the topic keywords of this conference. We got some terms for you for nurture according to the dictionary definition. Nurture means that you want to translate to nourish, like to really take care. But this is the context of Thai terms. It means that we have to take closely, especially if you have your children or your children, to build to a clean heart. This is the first intention, the first meaning. Second part is about to educate. The educating that we are in Thailand, that's about, can my child read? Can my child do mathematics? Can my child learn English? At in the same time, overseas, they don't care about knowledge. They're about development, about using hands, using their eyes, and so forth. And in the end, when it comes to about the development of about how to interpersonal skills, like making friends. So when we talk about ethics, I want to say that it's something that is insubstantial, it's intangible, because it's something I don't know how to make it substantial and make it intangible. So this is why when it comes to establish the term ethics, ethics is something that must be written down in code. So without the misinterpretation, these terms must be clear. The previous session, the first panel, we discussed about of how to make yourself to be a accountant professional. So there are some concerns that if you're a ASEAN CPA, right? So what do you have to do? How do you bring yourself? So you have to cut about your suspicions. But when it comes to ethics, no matter where, in the 9 countries or many other countries, they use the same ethic code or the same direction from ISBA. Therefore, you can see it clearly that when we discuss about ethics, it encompasses all these 5 bullet points, which is about the principles that which is good, which is thing that do's and don'ts, and at the same time built upon. Now, when it comes, there's some questions that pop up that is about, therefore, who should be responsible for nurturing the ethical value of accounting professionals, so that they will have to put emphasis in their profession. It will go down to step by step. Step number 1, okay, when it comes to professional accountants, all of you here, each individual here, that you will have to be responsible from individual level. Level number 2 is about in professional accounting firms or in companies. It means that we have to follow through ISBA. Because in ISBA, they have stated that it's about ethics and morals that for those who have professional accountants. It means that individuals. But at the same time, we talk about the firm or the corporation, which is the committee or the task force or even the team, which is level 2. Level 3 is about the accounting professional bodies. When you say bodies, it means that which is the accounting committees or the when it comes to TFAC, for instance. It means that we have our own. There's only uniquely in Thailand, but for Thailand, when it comes to aspect about committee, it means at least we often of other 4 committees. These 4 committees, which then since the establish of the foundings. Let me look at the piece of paper here, because I may misread the names. Which is legal laws and account, which is the Thai accounting. There's a committee of the quality accountancy, and these are Q, that's the nickname, and for the tax accounting committee. These 3 accountants that we have, accounting committees that we have informed, we follow about the ethics of the TFAC, but when it comes for those for the audits of tax, right? It has been incepted with the Act of 2564, because if more small firms, they do not need an audit. So when it comes to tax audits, so that it becomes part of the the excise department. And there is section 3, which also about the regulations about ethical committee. From what I've known, it's not unofficial yet because the excise department is about the revenue department is that for audits. And finally, it comes to those who are responsible to regulators. Regulators, their job is that if you think as accountants, the people accountants will think about the revenue department. In fact, no, it's not true. Accountants will have to consider about the
แล้วถึงจะเป็นลำดับสอง
DBD. So if you consider about that, such registered companies, listed companies, think about the Stock Exchange of Thailand or the Stock Exchange Committee. So there are 3 levels. So furthermore, then you think about that what kind of business are you conducting? So you have financial institutions, you have to look at about the Bank of Thailand, you have insurance, you have another department. This is the way direction. Nonetheless, all these efforts are the activities or the business activities. Your responsibility is about to nurture the ethical issues of those who accounting as a profession. Now, I'm going to discuss about Sung Wien to say this. As Professor Pagan, you have mentioned, there's from the big to small. All right, it's clear. Level 2, level 3, or even level 4. This is it's the small. It's not important. It's because it may be the infrastructure is there, but the intention of a professional accountant that we put it in bold text and large text because we are the mediators of all these activities. Therefore, the regulations and the frameworks that we have or the principles that we have, those that we apply. And to inform others what the definition ethics is by professional accountants. This is why they're in level 1, and why the font is big. When they add upon that, this is the reason why that they are the individual is important. Why? Because if you are auditors and you have an intention that you will not do other professional else, but the professor that taught you when you were in high school, the teacher that taught you in high school, that if you're an auditor, why don't you help do the accounts for the alumni, right? Okay, so you volunteer to be an accountant for that, but you must follow according to the Accounting Act of the Professional Accountancy Act. The importance is in the individual. The topic is that nurturing the ethical value. It means that we are trying to nurture ethics to make it valuable consistently, or to improve the value, to maintain its value, despite in the environment that may be diverse and ever changing. I want you to think it this way: is that ethical value as of now is valuable to you. Let me give you an example. This is our child. How are you going to nurture? How are you going to teach him for this child to grow up in the environment that is diverse and constantly changing every single day? Normally, when you have a baby, when you have a child, you will have to teach about morals and ethics and teach them, right? So that this child can survive and live on by themselves. And when you think about this as an analogy, and then you see this topic, I think come back into this topic that diverse and changing world environment. This is something that is inevitable because the times have changed, the world has changed, right? No matter whatever happens, it's going to hit you. But the question is, what are the variables that when it comes to ethicals to be sustained and maintained for the future? So we have to come to basic principles once again, the fundamental principles. As you can all know that when it comes to code of ethics, that our code of ethics, they have the fundamental principles. Can you remember? There's about six principles. I'm going to pop up all the principles for you. If we begin with integrity, that was the first point. Integrity is about what? It's in Thai. It's about integrity, honesty. But in English we usually say too. But in the Thai context it means honesty, and that we translate back integrity and honesty hand in hand. These two terms is not equivalent. Integrity truly means, ask many language experts that directly in Thai we don't have it, direct translation. Integrity, this I could, if you can look at the roots that we have searched, if Professor Prakan and it came from integer, it means the whole number, right? Can't miss it, the net number, right? Because if missing this, it may not the right principle. I read through this from some of the American philosophers. They mentioned that integrity as they translate to English as whole and complete. It also means that everything must be complete, no matter in what dimension, on every part. When I see that in principle number 1, if you can do this, it will encompass all the rest of the 5 other principles. But when you can see, they're also bringing to 6 principles. Principle number 2 is about objectivity. It means another principle that we all know, that is truth. And thirdly is about competency. We understand and we know this best because we got CPD and so forth. This is one of the fundamental principles that we have to sustain and maintain. I want to emphasize this one more time, that when you come due care, back in the day, it means that we care to be careful and fairness. But in the aspect of the meaning of care, it means that to be considerate, right? For instance, if you have a small children in your home, if you're in the care of the children, they're afraid that they'll fall down, hurt themselves, or but we have to put care first before we can reach that state, so that we translated that care and the concept, the whole, that as a professional accountant, you be for care. As a professional accountant, you must be care to what the things you are responsible for. Fourth principle is about confidentiality, able to keep secrets. Fifth is about professional behavior in this profession. And sixth is about transparency. As you can see, there's red and black fonts, right? Red is the things that we added as amendments for the Thai context, and there's also the independence. If you got if you've been past the registered, it's not in the principles in the basic fundamentals principles that international cloud, well, ISBA, but it will be in the standard independence. In the end of the annexes. So we have the red fonts to point number 3 is about maintaining working standards. Fifth, we also mentioned about the professional behavior, also incorporate responsibility to clients, shareholders, and those receiving your services. These are things that we added. And of course, to confidentiality, keep secrets. I think that we won't dive deep into these principles because we have limited time, but I just want to emphasize that no matter the environment may change, one thing that we must maintain if we want to manage and see that we can maintain the fundamental principles. Don't fear about changes. Ethical values, or the value in ethics, will never change, will not disappear, because the principles are still here. Now let's look at next is that when it comes to have the framework of that we will proceed, it's also the mindset or the conceptual framework what they're comprised of, such as when you fall into a situation or environment that is diverse and also consistently changing. This thing, when the currents happen in that kind of situation, one thing you'll be confronted, you have so many things that will impact you. We have called threats to put harm to you, but in Thai we call it challenges in Thai. So as accountants or those as accounting professionals, you have to be aware that the threats or the obstacles that's facing you. Now, those who are accounting professionals, what do you have to do then? That's the question. You have to try to separate, segregate, identify what are the obstacles that you're encountering, what are the obstacles, and how you assess the impact, the way you work, more or less, impact, the way to you could maintain the fundamental principles and deal with it. When deal with it, it means that what? To manage it, right? To deal with it, to erase it, eradicate it, depends. All these things is something that all accountants should have. One thing you want to add? Well, I want to emphasize once again that threats that when if you truly study, when you call the management studies, you will the SWOT analysis before, and in Thai Academy SWOT analysis, we define it that the same threats is about threats that's about posing danger, and even the translators when it comes about ethics, there's no threats to ethics, so we translate that to obstacles. There is a fundamental 6 principles there, but when it comes to threats, it means that don't put yourself in a situation or environment of these 5 points so that that you will lose your independence as an accountant. You'll be compromised, which is a compromise. Compromise is about to, the give and take, right? When it comes to ethics, it's that you can't negotiate. Ethics you can't negotiate with. So when it comes to ethics, it means also don't put yourself in a situation where you have to negotiate yourself. So that if you negotiate it, you'll be compromising yourself to do your work as a professional. So as a professional accountant, you must have a mindset. Be steadfast in your ethics. Stand your ground because of all these 3 frameworks, right? So there always have be curious to ask questions, pose questions that, wait a minute, are you in the situation of obstacles? Because if you don't separate or identify that this is obstacle or not, you will fall in that obstacle easily. So the abbreviation for number 1 is wait, right? Don't let it pass. Just wait a minute. Is it right? Is it wrong? This is so vital for accounting professional. Point number 2 is about your discretion to your profession, your professional judgment. Thirdly, is about reasonable and tested, and looking from a third party with your capabilities as someone who is a professional accountant. When it comes to about obstacles, it also comes that when you read a book, when you come to read books about ethics, those are accounting professionals. You must be able to identify and manage. So to eradicate, to make it disappear, or reduce or mitigate at a level that is acceptable. There are so many questions. Acceptable level, like who's the one that can cheer for who? Is it the accounting professional or the judge? So there's a terminology that we called as a phrase called reasonable and informed third-party test. It means, translate that into Thai. Well, I can't figure it out right now, so now. One thing I can say is this. As someone in the role, as a cable person, right, with competency, right, you can use RITP all the time. Reasonable, it means that someone as educated, as a learned person. Informed is someone to be informed of the news or information that is up to date. So all these people are in the level that they can tell you that your actions is right or wrong, righteous, or does it violate ethics or principle, is it legal or illegal. Third party is the third person who's educated, is more updated as someone, an educated person that will tell you is it right or wrong. And next, the committee, the ethical committee, they will also come up with RITP examples to share with you. Now, when it comes to about sustaining and maintaining ethics, we call about changing environments that we have been discussing that it may be necessary that we must be informed. We call it no CLAR. It means that when a company does not follow or comply with rules or regulations or law. Back in the day, we never mentioned about this prior to that. So why is it important? It is really important because in Thailand or us, if we don't know, in the end, you will fall into that trap once again. And once you fall in this trap, you won't be able to get out of it. So the ethical value will be an issue. So there's so many framework with the time, with such an environment that changes constantly, kind of often because we may not able to catch it in time. So this is my intention to tell you that this is something is so important because when it comes to the characteristics of this issue about ethics, that professional accountants must, one, be alert where they may be non-compliance with laws and regulation incidents. It may be an action from the work we do or what you encountered or something that you're suspicious. You must alert. Secondly, you must know that once it occurs, how to proceed when you become aware of the nuclear instance. Because if you don't know the framework, it's kind of hard to manage it according to the framework and the principles. Because these issues may be related to law. Of course, it's really related to law because when it comes to law that is in relationship, there are many aspects that you must manage with precise and precision. It also, including, may call upon law consultants or lawyers to help you answer some of these issues. Anything you want to add? Let's talk about the point number 3 first so that we can, no point 3, okay. When it comes to nuclear, some of us know some people have nuclear, some people are nuclear, some don't, to use their acronym, they just say non-compliance. So this is something getting quite importance daily, because we mentioned about laws about anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist agencies, for instance, or anti-money laundering agencies, or even the exchange committee, or there's in SECs, or even the anti-money agencies that try to push up as in regulatory. And just once as you as an see this, you must inform it because the trust between the client and those that have accounting professional. If you don't inform them, the trust just disappears. It's not clear cut yet, but the anti-money laundering agencies they don't have no policies yet, but they also impact those of accounting professions in the business like PAIB. Those in accounting professions that are independent PAPP, professional accountant in public practice. It means that also encompasses every practicing accountants or PBIC or even the business world or those who are actually writing the books like Mr. Pitt or even those who are auditors, professional auditors from Mr. Winnett. It means that it impacts everyone in the field. When it comes to auditors, for instance, there's a standard for G240. It mentions about the responsibilities for those who are auditors when if they found something of misconduct about the standard of 240. This standard is about nuclear, is in the stages of incubation, but after the interest and emphasis, there is a standard code 250 from 240 to 250. It means that it gives will educate you further. As from what I've known from now, IWLLC, it is the department that actually comes up with this code for the audits and those who derive the ISBA. They are working in collaborative. So now onwards, the standard of auditing or even ethics are going hand in hand when it comes to ethics and auditing. So when it comes to Section 240 for those responsible of auditors, if they find some of misconduct, they develop further to 250 when the situations when it comes to nuclear. Now, there is when the working of those of auditors, if the auditors, if they proceed about to follow and to report the committee of review, the auditor must negotiate, and the auditor must have to create a report that's about to inform those who the regulators, the TCWG, the charged with governance. This is 250 and 260 is a report of communicating showing intent of those who have a misconduct of internal audits. 240, 250, 260. But if these misconduct or internal audits may be a deficiency, they will have 265. So therefore, auditors was 240, 250, 260, and 265, which means that the CFO, the person who is responsible to the CA audit committee, you must be responsible and give focus on this as well. I leave this for all of you because it's not only in Thailand or any accountants in the ASEAN. No matter what country they fall into this category. This I leave with you. And one more thing I want to leave with you, if those who are auditors and TCWG, once the auditors that you're about to sign off are your partners, you must negotiate with the audit committee with the intent we call written confirmation as the book from the
we will receive the letter that we will receive from the written confirmation, and on the sign off date has to be the exact same date with the list of the CFA, and it has to be under the financial statement explaining that this financial statement has been allowed to be disclosed. And once these three documents, it has to be aligned. Therefore, these principles will be able to implement in all nations, whether in which country that you would like to work overseas in ASEAN, we will implement like this. And if you understand in a deeper level, and when the environment and the context has changed, you'll be able to apply these principles if you really understand the fundamental principle in a deeper level, and also these conceptual framework. And when we mention that we want to mobilize to other nations, it means that we are about to change the environment, and also especially the working environment. Like when we want to work in this country, in that country, what can be changed? So now we would like to summarize. If we cut out the word nation or land, what could be changed? Where we might be able to notice whether consciously and unconsciously. So we can say that this is the diverse and changing environment. This could be like all the disruption or the diversity and the pandemic that we have been facing with. When the pandemic occurred and emerged, the working approach will be changed. Whatever we have been able to get access, we can't. And once we can't get access, when we have to have certain kind of shortcut, or we might have to create some detour. And we also have to ask ourselves, with this working approach, are we still working under in that conceptual framework? Are we still working under the fundamental principle, and what that we cannot hold these fundamental principle? Imagine that we are counting the stock in terms of the accounting department, and we have to counting the stocks at the treasury department. Imagine if we don't have a drone, what would happen? And what if we have a drone? What should we do? Apart from using the drone, that's also another aspect that we have to encounter, and how reliable it is when we coming to be the CFA. And the next part will be about the technological advancement. And we will know that right now the technological advancement has been developed tremendously, and it also has an effect to our work environment. Apart from the rapid or maybe too fast, that sometimes we have to think back that do we really understand the working function of these technological advancement, and if we allow these AI to run the operation, now we're having the gap in terms of the capability. And in this point, the integrity also lack because we act as if we understand about that aspect. So this is also not right. And in terms of the culture and the generation gap, this is also existing, and we can't overlook, because sometimes when we have the different culture, different meaning, different diverse, sometimes we might have different meanings in terms of that. And of course, even the different generation, sometimes we might speak in a different language in the same nation. So we have to think back that earlier you mentioned about this, what does this word means? So this is also some certain diverse and what we have to understand about it. And the next point is about the language and communication gaps. These are mainly the working environment that could impact people even in our daily life. Another thing that is really important, if you have to work overseas, prior to that it might not be that clear, but if you have to work overseas and what we have received information via websites, some of them we might not be so certain whether it's in the right status or not. And we need to use the international standards, and it has to be implemented in a different level. Some people might say that we are fully adopt. Some might say we are partially adopt. When we face with this case, for example, we are coming from the area that Austria adopt, which means we implement only some part that use the standards. But when we have to move to work overseas with the location that use fully adopt for the standards, we also have to really adapt ourselves and put ourselves into that situation. And this is the information that we receive from various countries. You can see that some are not adopted, some are adopted, some are partially adopted, and some of the countries we might not accurate in terms of this information, because like the Singapore, it said partially adopt. So when it talks about ISBA code of ethics, maybe this website might not be updated, but I just show you just for your information. And I want you to focus only for two countries. Singapore comparing with Malaysia. Malaysia is the M in the middle of the table. And when we talk about the international standard of auditing, the information show that it has adopted according to the IESBA. And in terms of the code and ethics, it has adopted in the IESBA. But for Singapore, it said the information that we have received said that it is partially adopted, and also for IESBA, it's also partially adopted. I don't think this is correct, because the economy in these two nations are so similar, and their financial statement, it always has the cross-border. And I also have a friend who is a Malaysian, but they also have to register as member for the committee in Singapore. Otherwise, they can't work in Singapore. And my friends who are working in a Singaporean firm, they also complain that they paid for the member fee in Singapore, and they also have to do it in the Malaysia as well. These two countries, they have the cross border, but when we read the information, it's supposed to be exactly the same. But once they have coded the information like this, and we adopt the information, so we can't change any information from that website. And also in Thailand, the international standard on auditing, we also adopted, and we can be ensured that we adopted in all points. However, sometimes we might be some tiny little details. For example, like the ritual confirmation, we might have some partial parts, or even in terms of ISBA. We also fully adopt, but we also have the word legislation, because we have the Accounting Professional Act BE 2547. It means that we are not only adopted, but we also have added. But if I put only the word plus, it might be a bit weird. So I want you to be informed that this is not an official information, but this is as of information that we have been gathered. And for those in this conference room and also for those who are joining us via Zoom, if these information are incorrect, please inform us to TFAC, and we want the proof of evidence as well. And from this topic, these are the fundamental information. And of course, you might want to know that in this situation, what do we have to do? What do we supposed to do? And we can't gather all the information, or we might not be able to mention everything. Sometimes it might be about the infrastructure that we have to set up, or sometimes it might be about the personal level that they have to adopt themselves. For example, the first part is they have to be flexible when they work in their change in the work environment. Of course, they're supposed to have the boundaries. And what is this boundaries? Does this boundary is wide enough that we would be able to maintain the fundamental principle without any biases? The word bias, when we mention about ethical value, it is really crucial, because bias is not it's not from our own thinking that we are not biased, but actually the word bias is supposed to reflect from the external point of view, so that we can be really sure that we are really not biased. It's supposed to be someone else telling you that you're not biased. And I want to reflect back to the word ethics. Ethics is something that Mr. Pakon keep saying that it's about someone who perform the profession. It's not something that the professionals saying that you are ethical or I am ethical. In that case, it's subjective and it can't be said in that sense. And for bias, it is also the same thing. I would like to add on the word bias. In Thai, there is the word. We have 4 parts of bias. There are the bias of because of love, because of like, because of anger, and because of lust. So because if we have the bias because of love, because of the hatred, but the worst one, as the accountant professionals, you have the bias because of the lust. This bias means having the lust because you have changed your standards, but you're still not changed, or we have changed the legislation. This one means that you are lost in terms of or misunderstanding about the standards. You might think that you were really great about this, about that. You get a score, you can pass the test, but it already changed. The last one is the threatening bias. It means you have the bias because you want to offer certain things for the client, and because you are afraid to do certain things, or you don't want to do certain things because you're afraid that you will not get the projects, and that will affect and have certain consequences in the long run. So for the accountant professionals to be able to hold that integrity, that is also another factor that is really important. And the next part that we would like to talk is about the diversity of the workforce. And we have to really discuss about this, because when we face diversity, normally by nature we tend to move away. Like in the past, for example, in the office, we might have foreigners working in the office. The foreigners might have to sit alone in the office, and we have to adjust about this diversity and try to use the benefit of it. And when we talk about the value of the diversity of the workforce, like the working approach, like the employees, maybe we might have to promote the speak up program to let them speak more, or the speak up might consist of complaining about something or suing about something. We might have some kind of like minor card, which is something that could help in order to prevent the mistake or the misconduct that could happen in the organization. This is also in the infrastructure level that can be used to consider in the work office if there's some change happen. And when we're talking about diversity of the workforce, it's also about the mutual recognition of the MRA, mutual recognition agreement. And when we talk about the mutual recognition, it is also something that we might overlook because it might come from the people who might not have the authority. It might come from people who walk on the street, and we might not even think about that before because we overlook of it. But in some nation that they have the ethnicity, some tiny minor stuff turned out to be something that is really major. So when you work overseas, instead of when in Rome, do as the Romans do, you have to understand that sometimes when we have the workforce mobilization, it might affect something that related to the United Nations without knowing. And the next part will be about the information, which right now it is I have to say that this is the data era or big data era, and sometimes the information that we could gather, we don't even know whether is this the sensitive information. So when you share, you have to really be careful about that, whether it is an appropriate one or not. Is it the information that could lead to the improper, or is it not the right? It is not right for you to share. You have to be able to use the information to the certain level that it could be publicized. The word to be able to publicize, you have to be aware as well, because there is certain law that if you post like this, if you share something like this, it might mean that you also violating that law as well. So you have to bear in mind as well. And if I don't want the accountant professional to being involved in the lawsuit because of that, because that could have a really negative impact for our professions. The fourth one mainly will be about the audit, because when things change, of course, we need to have the new team, or the capital resources might have to leave the company. So we also have to plan about this, especially the rotation. We also have the regulation related and has been set by the SEC as well. And the last one, we have to talk about the competency, and we have to keep improving, because when we have new idea, new knowledge that we have to absorb and have to understand in order that our work, our services will still have the value according to the standards based on our capability. And sometimes we might not be able to slow down, especially the technology, because this is something that's inevitable. Because as the professions, we have to invest in the system, and and the knowledge related to the technology, because we need to understand and we have to have enough tools in order to prevent the case that we might be involved in something that might be misconduct by law. And sometimes this information might be the private or even sensitive information by nature. And if we get these information and they are allowed us to use, we have to use it with the responsibility. And for this point, it is the point that Mr. Pichit has mentioned that the Chiang Mai University has asked the faculty of accountant to learn together with the faculty of engineering. I believe that this could help with the cybersecurity for the next bullet. Apart from the technology, when things are changed, in order to control the peacefulness in the society, there will be law and regulations that has been amended, has been increased, had been added in order to create that these peace in the society. So of course, as a professions, we also need to know about this and how could we promote and how could we behave in order to understand these information. And this is not only in our country, because once you cross the border and you went overseas, you have to understand that main regulation and main legal system. Even you are in your own country, but if you have the foreign client, the client also expect that we supposed to have the knowledge more than them. So we have to understand what are they coming from, so that when we communicate, we can reconcile the information, and we could understand that if they approach us to our nation, then how can we reconcile? How can we work together? And then the next part, it will be something that we have faced in the university level. We can see that maybe this could apply only in Thailand. I don't have information from overseas. We have found that the undergrads' interest to learn or to work in the audit field in a lower manner. Right now, in the past about 100 people, but now we have only about 60 people, and that lead to the point that when they come to work in the office, they have the feeling that they change fast, they make the decision fast, they don't see the value of the professional license in a truly manner. So it quite give us a difficult time for this profession, because we still need new blood to come into our system as well, in our field as well. And I believe that everyone also agree that the gap is getting wider and wider. Usually people will come into the office and then they'll be until they pass CPA, and then they'll be with the company for about another 2 years. And once they might resign once they become the manager level. And but the age that will be in the company, they started to get like lesser or younger and younger. So those who coming in to work in the office, they will have less, the age is getting, therefore the experience also getting lesser. And I believe that this is really quite dangerous or quite fearful. And the last bullet, with the technological advancement, new AI has been coming in. They have come, and if we want to use them, we have to understand them, because sometimes when we're talking about the moral and ethical value, it has been imprinted into that AI, into that machine. So if we saying that the AI is doing that, we blaming them, we can't do that. We need to have that principle. But maybe it might not be only in terms of the robot itself or even the human itself, but maybe it will be something in between. Is this the questions in the case that the terminologies that we can't find the right translation? How can we communicate for all the stakeholders and the accountants to be able to communicate in the mutual understanding? So allow me to mention like this: when we translate the ethical value, we didn't translate by one person, but by the entire ethical committee. One single terms, we took time and we revise. So if you read back in the legal there will be the appendix. There will be the glossary. There will be the glossary. So you have to read, and we will do the translation there. So in this case, you can submit the issue. So the ethical committee will help you to understand these meaning, because we really put our effort into this. Really put the effort in the translation. Can you repeat the question again? In the case that the meaning in Thai and English is not the same, I have to say that you can't find exact 100% translation. For example, the word compromise, if you read on the normal dictionary, it will be the word compromise. But if we read on the root words, the word compromise means that you are in the situation that you have to comply. So if you, for example, if you read like the books or the movie related to the investigation, or like some kind of like a spy, that you have to cover your identity, and then the identity has been exposed, and it make that spy profession to be compromised. How can they compromise in that case? So in the terms of ethical value, we have to rethink and revise, and we think that okay, we can get the terminologies, but then for the next day or the next week, once we read in other contexts, and from that exact same terminology that we thought that we get that term, so we can't apply it in there. That's why the word compromised. That's why she used the word to ease out. And this word, seriously, we have to say that some words we might not even have, we haven't heard for the long period of time. Can you use this word, the word เกรงใจ to translate into English? This one can't be interpreted into English, and even many Japanese terms, they can't even interpret into English, because by culture and lifestyle. So what we want to do is we want okay, allow me to say that the accountant profession agreement, we sell only 200 baht, but no, rarely people will buy it. So you can use and see these terminologies in that book. But for the question, if you said that if there is the wording is not exactly the same in Thai and English, but if you read it in the legal book, I want you to read between the gap as well. And if you read in between the line, you'll be able to see more meaning. And when we do the translation, we did that. So I would like to invite everyone to try it on. And if you still feel that you still cannot get the answer, you can ask. And we'll be pleased if our member or the readers or anyone who asks and it's really hit us and we have to change it completely, it means we have found a really big discovery and we are willing to change. We are not stubborn to stay the same. And of course, there's a committee. We have a various meeting, because after we do the translation, we have to reread it, and we keep rereading. And every single time when we read, we see the deeper meaning, a deeper level inside these words. So this translation, we can't do exact 100% translation by nature of the language. It is impossible, but it will be the in-depth. It will be a deeper level once we absorb and immerse ourselves into the language. And I would like to add on that when you look in terms of the vocabularies, some vocab you might think that you are able to translate, but no. Sometimes you have to relook on the dictionary and you have to check when this dictionary has been created in which year, because once the time has passed, the vocab also change with the era as well. So we're trying to adjust it to be as much accurate as possible. And I like this question. Thank you for the question. Do you have any other questions? We have about 3 minutes left.
ครับ
Any further questions, please, from floor, audience? If there is no further questions, there's an issue that about information security, cyber security. No need. That's all right. Cybersecurity, some other issues that I want to add on to this presentation, is that the auditors or accounting professionals, you must give focus on this. No, truly understand it. It's not, yeah, I just read it. No, you really have to focus and really give interest into, because it's quite vital importance, especially in this age. Don't think that you're sending an email or do any activities that it ends there, or the destination of the emails to intent. You never know. You have no idea where that email can go anywhere. Therefore, I would like those accounting professionals, all of you, please educate yourself more. Do some more research, especially about the fundamental principles of your capabilities. Doesn't mean that you will have to go back in school. No, it means that get someone with the capabilities, with that aspect that you are missing. Add on to your team, strengthen your team, because some of you may be a little bit too old to go back to school because you have to pursue your career. At least hire someone who expertise on that aspect that you're missing to strengthen your team, to build your capability and competency. Because in the end, it's about the work that is delivered, about your framework, delivering the project, deliver that piece of work. It has to be of high quality, created by the team. That is ethical, competency, and the fundamental principles, all inclusive. Well, when it comes, oh yeah, there's about communications. I heard about communications in the morning. When you're in a changing and diverse work environment, I can reaffirm to you that the previous sessions also been communications is of vital importance. If you miscommunicate, there's so many issues that are going to come up. If you communicate, it's not about one-way direction. You have to ponder and expect that the person receiving the message is truly intended to be them. You have to cross-check it with them, that what you said, what you mentioned, do they truly understand on the same page and they can do it or not. Not just about sending one way. Yeah, okay, my job is to send, and that's it. No, it won't be effective. Well, I think we should be the ending of our presentation now, discussion. And in truth, for those accounting professionals that are Thai, I'm selling something here. I want to invite you to look at the code of ethics once again, because this code. This edition has many translations, lots of information, a lot of case examples, and about how to reconsider. Therefore, I want to invite you to please read this code of ethics. Our website, we have it too. You can download it. And I think we're out of time. Well, I thank all of you once again for staying until this long to bear with us and listen to us. On this occasion, I would like to thank John Perkan and Mr. Suwin Kanti highly. Next on the agenda, I would like to Mr. Tan Tripanit, former chairman of TCFAC, to hand out the souvenirs and take a group photo with our keynote speakers.
ขอเชิญให้วิทย
All keynote speakers, please remain on stage for a group photo.
ครับเช่นเดิมนะครับขอ
Like the same thing. Don't forget, our keynote speakers, please turn your back to the audience so that we can have a group photo with the audience and the rest of the room. And audience, please stand so that you can have a group photo all together in this photograph.
ค่ะขอขอบพระคุณท่านวิทยากร
Thank you very much, keynote.
Thank you all the speakers and panelists, and I would like everyone to scan the QR code and help us do the post-event survey in order to give us the feedback for the host, and we could improve it for the first.
Thank you very much, all of you, to participate on this conference. And I hope that the information of this conference will be beneficial to you and your organization. And please safe travels. And finally, I want to reinforce again that for those who are about auditors and those who want to accumulate CPD hours, don't forget to scan the QR code one more time before you depart for your home so that TFAC can actually note and record your hours into our system. And don't forget to scan your parking tickets. Thank you very much.
ท้ายที่สุดนะคะ
And lastly, for those who haven't give us the translation device back for now, that's end for today's section. Thank you, and hope that everyone will go back home safely.
Goodbye.